Good evening. Welcome to the Lompoc City Council meeting. Could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Costa? Here. Councilmember Strawbeck?
Present.
Councilmember Lingle?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dwayne Holmdahl?
Here.
Mayor John Lynn?
Here. Okay. This evening we have 3 items on closed session. I'm going to just announce them quickly and then we'll go to oral communications just so everybody knows what's on. We have anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4 of subdivision D of section 54956.91 matter. Conference with real property negotiators, property 320 North D Street, the former Moore Mill and Lumber property. Agency negotiator Kevin McCune, Public Works Director. Negotiating parties James Mercer Jr. representing the Pirates. Negotiation price and terms, I will be recused from that item. It's across the street from a property I own. And item number 3, conference with real property negotiators, property 1801 North H Street, Suite A, Lompoc, which is the Lompoc Airport Terminal. Agency negotiator Kevin McCune again, Public Works Director, negotiating parties Dash Aviation under negotiation price and terms for the use of the terminal. And now we'll move to oral communications. This is your opportunity to talk to us for 5 minutes. And I know you guys have got a spokesman, so where's the spokesman? Everybody, yeah, I think that's you. They're all pointing at you. Come on down. Har.
I'm James. Whoa, hello. Good evening. I am James Mercer, president of North Star Guilds. We're a local nonprofit dedicated to the education and entertainment of our community. I am also the event coordinator for this year's Haunted House. North Star members have been participating in the Lompoc Haunted House every year for the past 5 years. 3 years ago, we started organizing the event ourselves. It provides entertainment for all ages and good, safe fun for the entire community. In the past, we have held the Haunted House at locations such as the Veterans Hall and the Lompoc Civic Auditorium. This year, we'd like to have it at the Mill and Lumber Yard located at 320 North D Street. We've met with several city employees to ensure that our plans are entertaining and safe for everyone. I'm sure everyone we've dealt with in the past will agree that we have safety and security very seriously in our minds. Each year, we collect over 500 pounds of food for the Lompoc Food Pantry. This year, we plan to have at least 5 security people posted at various locations outside the facility. Some of them are there to direct vehicle traffic. Some of them are there to direct foot traffic. All of them are there to keep everyone safe. In addition, we have 5 security people located within the haunted house to direct patrons through the haunted house, as well as assist them on evacuating due to emergency or if they are too scared to continue. We have several fire extinguishers located throughout both buildings, and all safety security people are trained as to their locations and how to properly use them. We have an emergency evacuation plan. There are safety halls constructed throughout the haunted house to assist in evacuation and emergency response. We utilize walkie-talkies throughout the event. We perform fire drills every night of the event and utilize a PA system for additional communication. We have a certified electrician who also works for the city, who is volunteering his time to ensure that all lights and outlets are either operational or they are disabled according to electrical code. Again, safety is our main concern. We want everyone who attends to have a safe and wicked, scary, fun haunted house experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on council have a question for the speaker? Okay, all of you who are here with, don't run away. All of you who are here with the Pirates, stand up. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to talk to us at this time before we go to closed session? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, we'll be back at 7. Sorry it took a little bit longer, but we had 3 items to take care of. City Attorney, can I have a report on action taken during closed session, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Pursuant to the Ralph M. Brown Act, there are 2 council items to report out of closed session. On business item number 2, conference with real property negotiators, council has authorized entering into a final rental agreement at 320 North D Street, Lompoc, California. Agency negotiator Kevin McCune, negotiating parties James Mercer Jr. On business item number 3, council has authorized entering into a final rental agreement at property 1801 North H Street, Suite A, Lompoc, California. Negotiator Kevin McCune, negotiating parties Dash Aviation.
Thank you. Okay, so all you pirates, that means you got your rental agreement. Okay, now go on out of here so everybody else can sit down. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And so for everyone who wasn't here earlier, the Pirates group came to us to rent a city facility to put the haunted house in for Halloween, and has spent some time working with the city staff to make sure it would be safe and work out. And this evening, the council, without myself present because I own adjoining property, agreed to that rental. The other one, item number 3, is a negotiation with a company called Dash Aviation. The local carrier name will be the Wine Country Express, and they came to us in January of this year to discuss using the Lompoc Airport to provide connecting service to various other airports. At this point, it looks like it's Carlsbad, Long Beach, and Ontario, and probably Bakersfield. And they were working their way through this, but with a huge number of increased students coming to Hancock College for the oil industry safety training over the next 3 to 4 months, they accelerated their plans, and the city staff and I have been working diligently to get this agreement to the council today because we have to start painting tomorrow. So that'll be good news for all of us here. We'll have an opportunity to fly somewhere instead of drive. And the price is right too, but I can't actually announce that yet. But the price is, the flight price will be very competitive. Okay. And now we have the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief? The one that's getting the proclamation. He hasn't been here long enough yet. We don't get proclamations for 3 weeks. So this evening we have a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the City of Lompoc is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city, and whereas home fires killed more than 2,300 people in the United States in 2012, according to the latest research from the nonprofit National Fire Protection Association. And fire departments in the United States respond to more than 365,000 fires annually. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, working smoke alarms cut the risk of death in reported home fires in half. And residents who plan and practice a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas 3 out of 5 home fire deaths result from fires in properties without working smoke alarms, in 1/5 of all homes with smoke alarms, none were working when smoke alarms should have been operating but did not do so. It was usually because the batteries were missing, disconnected, or dead. Whereas Lompoc residents should install smoke alarms at every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home, and they should install smoke alarms and alert devices that meet the needs of the people who are deaf or hard of hearing if they're in your home. Whereas Lompoc residents do have, I do that too, have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan, are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive in a fire. And whereas the city's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, residents who are responsive to public education measures are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2014 Fire Prevention Week theme, Working Smoke Alarms Saved Lives, test years every month, effectively serves to remind us that we need working smoke alarms to put us in time to get ready to exit safely. Now, therefore, I, John H. Lynn, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim October 5th through 11th as Fire Prevention Week throughout our city, and urge all residents to test their smoke alarms at least every month by pushing the test button, to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Lompoc Fire Department during Fire Prevention Week 2014, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the City of Lompoc Fire Department. So if you're seeking a way to remember to push the button, when you write the check for your utility bill to the city, which helps pay a little teeny amount for the fire department, go test your smoke alarm. Chief?
This year's theme is especially meaningful to us in your fire department. For this year, just a few short weeks ago, we did have a fatal fire whereby the person did not survive the fire, did not have a working smoke detector. Had that home had a working smoke detector, that gentleman would probably still be with us. So this one kind of rings close to us this year. I do encourage you, when you go home tonight, if you haven't done it recently, to test that smoke detector. I encourage you to have a plan to get out of your home. This year, we've started a new project, and that is to spread the word about the new smoke detectors that are out there that are sealed units, and they have 10-year batteries in them. So if you get one of those type of detectors, you no longer have to worry about changing that battery every single year, or as we recommend, twice a year. I'd like to invite all of you to attend what has become our wildly successful and nationally renowned Lompoc Fire Department annual open house. Every single year we have the open house on the Saturday right before Fire Prevention Week to kick that Fire Prevention Week off. We've added some new interactive displays this year. We'll be previewing the brand new Fire Foundation's Community Risk Reduction Training Trailer, and we're going after a very specific audience group that we haven't been able to in the past. So come and see us October the 4th from 10 until 4, and bring the kids. It's always a great time, and flyers will be coming out to the schools. Thank you very much.
City Administrator's status report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to report that it's been very topical this year. That Chief Latapau and his staff had organized for our executive staff and some additional training related to emergency operations and emergency response and how we conduct business when we're in a state of emergency. And I just want to give my appreciation to all the different disciplines that were represented, and it's part of a series of things that we've been working on this year, and it particularly proved essential when we were able to put it into use. It was unfortunate we had the Megalito fire and it was necessary to put it in use, but thankful that we had this type of training. It's just one of those things we don't talk about much in the community, but it's very important that one of the things we do is to try to make sure that when we're in states of emergency that we have a response that's highly trained and ready so that we don't lose precious time trying to figure out what to do. So thanks again to all the staff, particularly the fire staff, for helping to facilitate that, and to the Santa Barbara County Office of Emergency Management for facilitating the staff. One thing as well, there's an update on we had the Oversight Board met for the successor agency of the dissolved Lompoc Redevelopment Agency and approved the ROPS, and I was looking for the rest of the staff if there was any other reportable action out of that. I don't believe so. I think that covers everything. That sounds right. Good. Got the thumbs up, so I think we're good to go. Thank you very much.
So now we have open oral communications, and this is your time to talk to us about something that's not on the agenda. But before we do that, I want to ask the council for permission to amend the rules. Generally, council requested items are scheduled on the agenda after public hearing. This evening, because we have a large number of people here with regard to the swap meet item, I'd like to reverse item number 1 and item number 2. And I also have an announcement with regard to that that'll probably make everybody smile. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I just want to remind us, though, that we have a paid consultant over there that's costs us a lot of money, so hopefully.
Yeah, he said he was going to go to lunch or something. I don't know. Dirk? Yeah. Well, you have to tell me I can suspend the rules for this item.
Well, I'd rather not. I mean, obviously, I've got recusal, and I'd like to do the business we had the special meeting for, but I think that it's going to go the other way, so I'll just base my recusal based upon what time you want to do this.
Okay. Councilmember Holmwell? Costa?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So now, having said that, we're going to move item 2 first, which will be discussion of the extension of the swap meet operating. And if you want to talk about anything else except the 2 items that are on the agenda, I would like to hear from you now. If you want to talk about those 2 items, we'll get to you in just a minute. Anyone here on a separate item, come on down.
Pam Wall, local resident. I'm not really asking for me, but I'm asking for time for our fire chief, maybe to give us an update on the King Fire. It's the #1 fire that's being watched in the nation right now, and we have people up there. So I'm hoping we could get a little update on our own crews and what's going on.
Okay. Let me get to the end of oral communication. We'll do that. Anyone else?
Mayor, council, staff, Frank Campo, local resident. I'd just like to let you know that we had a good turnout. Well, we had a good speaker series last night at the library. We had 4 decorated veterans speak. The library's doing a month-long series on going to war and coming home, and we had 4 outstanding speakers. Ms. Wall was there. She could probably attest to the same thing. But it was very disappointing. We only had about 12 people in attendance. So these series are going to go on for the next 3 weeks on Monday night at 6:30. Next week, we're going to have some mental health professionals that are going to talk about, dealing with veterans and military that have suffered some kind of traumatic injuries and how you deal with that. So we would like to see more folks from the community show up at that event. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, council members and audience. I'm Mary Saladino, a resident of Lompoc, and I would like to call to your attention the problem that we have in regard to our parks. Frequently, I go to Beatty Park, sometimes to read in the shade and enjoy the breeze and the pleasant peace and quiet there, and sometimes I go to walk. Well, today I went on a walk, and I passed numerous places where the grass was this high from the ground. And fortunately, a volunteer was cutting that grass down with a weed whacker. And it's just like a hayfield all over the place. And so I asked questions about that, and this volunteer said, well, we don't have enough people to cover the maintenance properly in the parks. Mostly, according to this person's description, the priorities for the staff that is available go to clearing the sports fields, such as soccer, football, or baseball, or whatever, and also whatever events are held at Ryan Park, which would be your car show and your festivals and your dog show, I'm assuming. And I said, well, don't they have to pay a fee in order to have events there? Yes. Well, where do those fees go to? Doesn't that go back to maintaining the park? Well, this person did not know. So I decided to call one of the council members and find out. And I believe it was explained to me that a portion of it goes into maintenance and a portion of it goes into general fund. Is that correct?
City Administrator.
That's correct.
Okay. The other thing is that they have 4 paid employees who take care of all the parks that we have in Lompoc. And we all love those parks. We enjoy having a place to have peace and quiet and recreation for the children. So I was upset about that because I have been warned by the city that I will be charged a fine if I waste water on my property. However, this volunteer did describe the fact that the sprinkler system was all out of whack, and they haven't been able to have enough staff to correct it, so water was definitely being wasted there. Plus, this person said that they found a break in the water lines somewhere. So now if I have a break in water lines and a huge amount of water is wasted, I get fined for that. Is anyone going to fine the city park system for wasting water? Question.
Okay, when you get done, I'll answer that one for you. Anything else?
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for listening. I'm mostly just upset that we don't have enough money for maintenance. You cannot expect 4 people to take care of all of the park systems that we all enjoy for various reasons. So would you consider that in your determination about what's going to happen in regard to the budgets?
Thank you.
All right.
In answer to your question about broken lines, we probably have 4 broken lines in parks every single week, and we have one guy who has a truck that's fully equipped to go out and fix those broken lines as quickly as we find them.
What else is being neglected while he has to do that?
The decision was made by prior councils and confirmed by this council that we were going to put our money into police and fire, and we were going to take a little out of parks. Hopefully, as the economy comes around and all the things we've worked on get better, we'll have some more money for parks, and that's a discussion at our 15-17 budget hearings the first of the year.
Thank you. Please add that to your agenda for the future and work on it because it's very important. And if volunteers can do things like that with no pay, it seems to me like the city could come up with enough money to pay adequately maintenance. And if you are going to continue adding parks to our city system, would you consider adding maintenance budget for the system? Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice, close oral communication. Come back, we're going to go to item number 2. Chief, you want me to lead off with the late breaking news?
It's your prerogative, Mayor. I'll either present the item or you can give your news if you'd like.
Yeah, you got to go, Dirk.
Yeah. I own real property within 500 feet of the swap meet, so I will recuse myself.
So in a conversation today with the Lompoc Unified School District, they've reviewed the option of putting the swap meet on the Lompoc High School campus, and although they had initially thought that would be a positive thing, at the end of the day, the total of the yes and the no was that they did not see it as an overall positive for the school district and would not be interested in doing that. After that phone call, and based on something someone said about 3 hearings ago about College of the Desert having a swap meet on their property, I took the opportunity to call Kevin Walters, who's the president of Hancock College. And he called me back this morning, and I discussed the issue with the swap meet, which he was familiar with, and he was also familiar with a number of other community colleges that have swap meets on their properties and have operated successfully. He asked this council to give the swap meet a 30-day extension, and during which time they would evaluate it and come back to us with a yes or no. City Administrator?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the, in addition to unscheduled oral communications, this is the third meeting this year that we've had the opportunity to discuss the swap meet. Originally, we did a presentation at April 1st council meeting that was informative in nature, workshop, if you will, and then on July 15th, the successor agency meeting, this council acting as the board of the successor agency took action to discontinue the lease agreement that had been in place and expired with the concessionaire regarding the swap meet. At that point, your action and decision was to allow for a 75-day notice period, in essence longer than what the agreement had called for, to afford the concessionaire the opportunity to relocate those operations. It was at the September 2nd meeting, just about 3 weeks ago, that the concessionaire then asked for an additional, during a public comment period, asked for to continue that to the end of the year to December 31st to allow for more time for relocation. Staff really doesn't have a recommendation one way or the other on whether you grant this extension or not. The issue I particularly did want to raise, and I was disappointed to learn both, you know, I express my concern and hope everything works out well, but I learned through the media that the concessionaire was not going to be here tonight, that he had a family emergency and that has taken him back to Texas. I was disappointed to have heard that. I was also unfortunate. I assume that the reports through the media are accurate. One of the things that's impacting my ability to present the item to you is I'd hoped for the concessionaire to be here because there was some issues that seemed to be uncertain, as though there were some mixed messages going on. I just thought it was important for this. I thought it was important for this council and board to be able to have an understanding of what the intentions were of the concessionaire in order to make an informed decision on this vote. His statement here at this podium had been that his intention for the request of the extension was to facilitate the possibility of searching for and finding a new location. The reports within the media are quoting him, if the quotes are accurate, are quoting that of his intention to attempt to keep the swap meet operating at its current location. Those two things seem to be at conflict of each other. And again, for you to make an informed decision, I think we should at least understand what those intentions are. With that, the mayor has reported on the more recent late-breaking information with with the college as well. Like I said, staff really doesn't have a recommendation one way or the other. I would point out that if you do not approve an extension, then the October 1st deadline would remain in place, and essentially this coming Saturday would be the final Saturday of the swap meet event. And with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation. Obviously, if you have any questions, we'll be available.
Are there any questions for the city administrator at this time? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I do have
go
one
ahead.
question. City Administrator, the one other comment that I heard during that request was through the calendar year to help the folks sort of close up shop and deal with the holiday season more effectively in that transition. Is that not something that you see merits any focus or attention, or did you not recall that similar statement?
No, I don't recall that in particular. I was keenly focused on what the concessionaire's request was and his reason for that request, and that seemed to be what council's direction to me in bringing this item back today was in response to the concessionaire statement. So I just didn't focus on any of the other statements at that time.
And at this point, you haven't had any communication with the concessionaire?
No, I have not.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Okay, so there's a whole lot of you here. So at this point, I'm just going to kind of query the council real quick so we can maybe come to a kind of a preliminary discussion. With regard to Hancock College's request to extend this for 30 days, barring what we hear in public comment, would you be favorable to that?
No. And my reason is that I do not feel the concessionaire has been making any attempts to do any negotiations. He stated that he intends on keeping it here on city property. He made an initial contact with the high school.
I'm concerned about going too far down this road.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just kind of
the answer
looking
is
for
no.
a straw vote.
The answer is no.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we're past. I got to go the other way. I got to go to communication first.
I omitted something from my presentation that I think is of note, unless you already covered it with the high school issue.
Go ahead, just in case I didn't.
Right. It was just to say, though, I'm not aware of any attempts the concessionaire has made in the 75 days period up till now to relocate, other than some connections, some discussions that I think the mayor had facilitated with the school district. I was approached by and that was related to utilizing the parking lot of the Lompoc High School, and just wanted to share that the assistant superintendent of the school district had informed me that they wouldn't be able, it's not going to work on their site, and they wouldn't be able to facilitate.
Yeah, I covered that. But you got the phone call before I did. City Attorney, if I could ask how the other people are leaning and just have a yes or no from them, I might be able to save a lot of conversation out here. How do you feel about that?
I think a simple query with an oral tally may be sufficient, but then it would be advisable to open up to public comment.
Yeah, I'll do that after. Ashley, how would you feel? Yes or no?
I'm really curious to see if any of the public speakers can speak to the question at hand, which is, do we feel that there's been, is the discussion still they want to stay in the same location, or is the discussion still about what is an appropriate amount of extended time to find another location? About on that end of things,
Okay,
I'd be more
stop,
comfortable with January 1.
Stop. Yeah, now we're way beyond yes or no. Okay, coming back around. We're going to start over.
I think we can have discussion before public comment. I think that's appropriate.
I'm not comfortable anymore.
All right.
I think we're beyond that.
My understanding was that the mayor was going to open up the item for a quick tally prior to public comment, but public comment is advisable because something may be said that may
Change the opinion.
weigh on the decisions made by the council.
Yep. Okay, so standard procedure is last time. First, I'm going to ask anyone who would like to speak for 1 minute to come on down.
Pam Wall, local resident. I just have a question for the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking to the Allen Hancock. Are you talking about this concessionaire operating at Allen Hancock or Allen Hancock operating the swap meet? Because there are community colleges doing this and doing it very effectively. They run a tight ship. They're very popular, have been around for a long time, and they manage the business. The problem here is the concessionaire. Nobody has spoken out against the swap meet. Moving it, yes. But the problem is this concessionaire. And it was an election year before, and it's an election year 10 years later. And we have Mayor DeWeese saying the same thing that you're saying, better look for another location. And we have Councilmember Holmdahl back again 10 years later saying, gotta look for another location. And Jan Keller morphs into Ashley Costa. I'm sure we can fix some of these problems and deal with it. The concessionaire, this is his MO, storming City Hall. So I would hope that you would look...
Wrap up, please.
Yes, I hope you're talking to them about them taking it on or another concessionaire. Thank you.
Thank you. My conversation with them was not specifically who would manage it. I was only discussing having the swap meet there. That would be their decision. Ma'am?
We're here again talking about the same subject. It's amazing to me that this
I'm sorry, I need your name.
Oh, Shelley Davis.
Thank you. Would you
It's
restart
amazing
the
to
time?
me
Just
that-
a sec.
Okay, sorry.
Restart the time, please.
It's okay.
Okay, Shelley, go for it.
Okay, so I don't quite understand why this keeps getting put on the agenda. I don't understand. We know it needs to go to someplace else. It's too big for the location. It's not anybody's fault. It's not anybody's problem to relocate this place. It's the concessionaire's responsibility and a subject. I don't think there really needs to be any more talking about it. I think it needs to be done and over with. Thank you.
Thank you. And who's next?
I'm at the,
Can we talk together?
Sure, come on up.
I'm about the flea market. I've been going there. I like the flea market, the same spot. I've been there for many years, and I've been walking, bringing money, and then paying money. I wanted there, so I said yes.
Thank you.
Just to reiterate, he is 20 years old, and he's been going to the swap meet at the same location for 18 years.
Okay, if you give your name, please.
My name's George Reprobel.
And his name, please?
Austin Houck.
Tand you.
All right. And we'd like to keep it at the same location if it's possible.
Thank you. And who's next for 1 minute? Anyone who's going to speak for 1 minute, come on over here on this side. Just come on down and get in the line and we'll get organized.
My name is Robert Diaz, and I have one comment. I could speak for a long time, but I got one comment, is that about Allen Hancock College. From the state to the city of Lompoc to Allen Hancock College, there was a condition on it that it remained public, for public use. I don't think the swap meet would work there because that would be a commercial use. I think that would be kind of just stop everything about that Allen Hancock College bit.
Thank you. And who's next?
My name is Juliana Vences, and I'm a citizen of Lompoc. I don't think, I also agree with the sir previous, I don't think it would work at the Allen Hancock location because, one, the reason why it's so easily accessible to attend the Lompoc swap meet is because it's in the heart of downtown Lompoc. I've walked there, it's an easy walk, and I've heard that you guys have located up towards Mission Hills, and it's kind of harder for people who don't have vehicles to drive and attend there. Also, I've been going there for 10 years, and I would really like to still be within walking distance of the swamp meet and wake up with my grandfather and have a good breakfast with him. It's a cultural thing, it's an environment thing, and I think that it really, if it was a discussion 10 years ago and it remained there, why can't it remain there?
Thank you. And next, please.
Okay, Mary Saladino again. In regard to the swap meet, I think many years ago it was a small event and it worked very well, probably then. Now it is a difficult thing to allow the city to grow with this going on right in the middle of our tourist area. The other thing I would like to say, if you decide to allow it to happen or continue, I would like to ask the council to make specific rules and guidelines that are required to be followed by whoever is in charge of it. It seems to me like the person who is in charge of it has neglected to get a new license, has neglected to do several different things, and if you are going to allow it to happen, I wish you would work very diligently to get some guidelines that would work for everybody.
Next, please.
Steve York. I've been a 5-minute speaker and a 3-minute speaker. I'm going to be a 1-minute speaker on this tonight. My feelings about the swap meet and its location are widely known. I think it's a bad location. I also do agree that the issue is the concessionaire. You know, at the last council meeting, Chuck Arnold, probably the swap meet's most vocal proponent, said that the parking is an issue at the swap meet. I have had one 30-second conversation with Mr. Ross about the parking, and basically he told me to take a flying leap. The best compromises are made with negotiation, where everybody gives in a little bit. And there has been no negotiation from the swap meet side on the parking issue in downtown Lompoc. And until those issues are solved, we're going to be back here time and time again, because I'm not going to stop this fight. I don't care what the council does tonight. I had a feeling you guys were going to extend the contract through the year as it was, to get through the Christmas holiday. But the problems with the parking have not been fixed. Nothing has been done. And it's time for the city to call the bluff on this concessionaire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Well, looks like there's a lot of opposition here. However, I don't know what they have against me as taking care of the swap meet. I've kept the vendors from parking in their parking lot, and the parking, if somebody else parks there, it's probably their own customers. And we don't let anybody park there that we can help. And I just don't understand it. And we keep the swap meet clean. Mario goes down there on Friday evenings and paints his lines and stuff, and he also cleans up the mess that all through the week, 5 days, that parking lot is full of cars that, you know, that catch the bus to go to work, or they're catching rides with each other or whatever. And he cleans it up before the swap meet starts. Then he stays there late and cleans it up after the vendors leave.
I need you to wrap it up, Ms. Parker.
Understand?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, can you just please state your name for the record?
Okay.
Yes. Can you state your name for the record, please?
My name?
Yes, ma'am.
Helen Parker.
Thank you. Your minute's up.
Okay.
Thank you.
And also,
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time's up.
my time is up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Chidoba. Basically what it comes down to is numbers if you want to really play this game. 639 petitions signed. right here, 639 signed. What I want the council members to do, you see everybody here, but you look through us. Take a look at everybody and actually see us. Like I said last time, you only hear us, but you don't listen to us. But look at everybody. You're only seeing, but you're not actually looking at the person here of it. They just don't sell produce. They sell tradition. They sell a community. That's what the swap meet's all about. Basically, we have people from all over the country, all over the state visiting the swap meet. They know about the swap meet because they see the signs coming through our city. If they didn't, they would have kept on going, keep on going through the one. The swap meet is somewhere we can go, have fun, go do things and shop. But like once again, take a look. You see all the people here? See the people, just don't look through us. I want to leave you this question. I want to leave you guys to think about this. If you take this away from the citizens of Lompoc, what's the next thing that you'll take away from us?
Thank you. Anyone else for 1 minute?
My name is Bill Carlson, and I'm glad I came tonight because I have learned from the council some things that I didn't know before, and I've looked at this in a little different way. But it seems to me like if the problem is with the administration of the swap meet, it's a separate thing, and it would really be a shame to have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, is that all these people here use the swap meet either for their recreation on a Saturday afternoon or for income on a Saturday. But it's, to me, it's a beautiful cultural part of the city that I love. And I think to have to take it away from the city is not a good idea, and especially even changing the location from somewhere in the middle of the city is not a good idea. We need it in the middle of the city. That's where it belongs. People walk there, and that's a good thing in this day and age. We're talking about global warming. People choose to walk there. We don't drive our cars there.
Thank you. Anyone else for 1 minute? Okay, there we go. One more coming on down. If there's anybody else for 1 minute, start coming this direction so we'll get it all in here together. We had a lot of people, so we want to give everybody a chance to speak. Ma'am.
Hi, my name's Susie Sorensen, and we have a building here in downtown Lompoc. I just wanted to give my opinion. I'm hearing about everybody that wants to have it here, but maybe if it's would be more cost that we could bring in more funds for the city, because what I've heard, it's only like $400 that they pay for that huge parking lot. And what about the rest of us that own businesses here in town, pay rent, taxes, business licenses, all kinds of stuff? It doesn't sound like that the vendors are paying enough money, even though it's so overgrown and it's so large for the space that it started out in. So, I mean, that's my concern as a business owner and a property owner. Like, our tenants pay rent. So maybe if they had a larger rent or a bigger fee and the city was making more money to keep it cleaned, and they could pick a bigger space to have it.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, you guys are too bashful. Come on over here and line up if you want to talk. Because after him, if nobody's standing, I'm going to turn this off.
Hi, my name is Horacio Angulo, and I'm an insurance broker. And I come to the swap meet every Saturday to do advertising, actually to network, to find out the community, actually speak to the community. And it's a way for my business to grow and to get to know the community. And it's helped me out for 4 years. And I do pay taxes, pay license, pay what I need to pay for the state. So the swap meet has helped me to get to know the community, and the community to get to know me. And other businesses here also benefit from the swap meet in different aspects that actually help the community. I wish I could have more time, but time's almost up. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Lisa Catlan. I just want to specify and tell you guys that all these people that are here, they're not just there for fun. They're there to actually make money. And also, it is a traditional thing. Everybody that I've known take their kids, take their parents, or if anybody comes from some other town, they show them where it's at. That makes more money for everybody else. And everybody pays taxes that everybody has permits. Every single vendor that's there, they're not just there. It's also to make money for their rent, make money for their kids. And also, a lot of people do this just to get out of the house. A lot of people, they can get depressed. And for some other people, I know my mother, it's something that it takes her out of depression. And it's something that it's for families. So I just want to thank you guys and for listening to us, and I hope that you guys make a good decision for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Thornhill. I want to try to make this short and sweet. My dad used to take me there as a teenager. He still goes there with my mom. My mom can't really drive. They walk. They ride bicycles. It's a community thing. If it's a money issue, again, raise the money. If it's an issue with going over rules and regulations, fix it. We need to fix our community, not push it away. We won't have much of a community if we keep taking things that bring us together. That's all I have to say about it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Alberto Cubillo, and I'm living in Lompoc for 25 years. And I just wanted to let you as a council members, just administrated this city for the wealthy people. The low-income families pay the bills to the city. I'm pretty sure you don't give any services for free for any of the low incomes. So just think on the people you are administrating their lives. Not thinking on $200,000 you make a year. Those people survive on this city paying the bills, which from where paying your salaries. So think on those people too. Not just thinking on the wealthy people. Wealthy people have a lot of money and have a power with you, I know. But think on the low-income people, which is living here, supporting the city too. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on down. Don't be bashful. Just pull that microphone on down. There you go.
I would need more than a minute, though.
Yeah, right now we're only doing a minute.
I didn't see any other hands up, were there?
I don't know yet, but if you want to just kind of back up in the corner a second, we'll get this figured out. Anybody else want a minute out of this? Anybody? Come on down. Yep, nope, okay. Now we're going to go to 3 minutes, and you're here first. Nope. Nope, one more. Come on, sir. It's okay. 1 minute. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Gerardo Aguirre. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to listen to us. If you really listen, the swamp is we like to have in the current location. Why? Because a lot of people, they have no way to transport, and that's an easy access for the old people to go, and that's the tradition. For the families meet in there, and every Saturday, or some of the Saturdays. So we just ask for keeping the same location. You guys can do that. They say, just thinking of the low-income people, and that's the way they have their purchases in there. So, and as a vendor, we have a license, and we pay the fee of California taxes, and we have everything legally. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and please listen us and without petition. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now we'll go to 3 minutes. You're first.
Hello, my name is Shauna Ruiz, and my husband Josh spoke during the last meeting. You, the council, had stated that you'd possibly extend the time that we have at our current location in order for Mike to find a new one, possibly the college you stay now, or nothing. Is that the only answer we have? Well, I don't believe that's good enough, and I don't think anyone else who is a loyal swap meter would agree. Other swap meters have pleaded with you to not shut the swap meet down for reasons of income and tradition. Many citizens of Lompoc are outraged that this is even an issue at all. We feel like we're not being heard. For myself and others like me, we have a different issue. We're disabled. There are not many activities to do in Lompoc, and as for the one we do have, I believe we'd be distraught without it. Do you really want to shut down something that impacts so many people's lives? Personally, the swap meet means a lot to me, and it helps me in so many ways. It is my weekly activity. It is my family outing. It helps pay my rent and bills. It helps me meet new people and motivates me to get more involved with my community. This swap meet dilemma has already begun to affect us in a negative way. Vendors are losing customers because they think it's already closed. Customers lost means money lost, and it's hurting the families that count on this money. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but the truth is, we don't want your extensions. We don't want to be relocated. We want to be left alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I realize that there may be people that you support or don't support, but we have a policy here in the council that we neither applaud nor boo for anything except proclamations and things like that. So I'm going to have to ask you, because that's what we do at every meeting, to hold your applause. Thank you very much for cooperating. Sir.
Hi, my name is Enrique Mesa. I respect all the people who oppose to keep the swap meet at the same location. Do some people say that there's a lot of trash around their houses? Some people say there's a lot of loud music. For the trash, I would like to help out with that if it's possible. As a member of the Knights of Columbus on Council 11465 from Queen of Angels, we have a section from the golf course 2 miles down to the east. We clean that up every other month, and I will be able to volunteer cleaning up all around the block every Saturday, because as I'm a vendor. And the reason I became a vendor is because last year my third child has autism, and he started saying that this year he was going to start high school. So I started thinking about some other way to earn an extra income. So I started selling merchandise as a vendor in the swap meet. So I started a savings account for him so he can go to college, because it's his dream. And I want to help him with that. I will appreciate you to consider keeping the swap meet at the same location for people who can walk. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance? Going? Nope, one chance only. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Anyone else left? Come over here to the side, please. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My name is Yuri Gomez. I'm a resident of Lompoc. And I believe a lot of people here were not aware of the issue up until the point where it became an issue of not only whether it would be relocated or not. It became an issue once we knew it was a relocation, and it's just a matter of when. I would like to remind the community that not only is this a cultural issue, a tradition, business and economical issue, but some of the community members here have a place where they like to go to on the weekends during the week. We had a community member today say, or come and defend the parks and recreation areas. This is something that we have to consider the same way we do our parks, places where children go, skate parks, anything where a community goes for their safety and for recreation. Also, some of the business members of the community have brought up the issue that this is taken away from their business. As a resident of Lompoc, I support businesses in the community. I support local business owners the way we would support people that come on Saturdays and are vendors in the community. Some of those services or products are not offered in the businesses that are in Lompoc. So if you take them away from Lompoc, they will be getting them elsewhere. Some of the people don't have the means or the resources to travel to Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, where they would have to find these services or products. So that's something that I don't think this is an issue that we have options. It's a matter of you guys opening up those doors. So this is not just a closed door. We have windows, and you have to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Wordley. I live on 211 South J. Please do not extend the flea market contract to the end of the year. Mike Ross and his mother, Helen Parker, have had more than enough time to search for another location. Mike Ross is quoted in the Lompoc Record newspaper today saying that he feels like the swap meet belongs where it is. I believe he has no real intentions of relocating. I believe he is only using the stalling technique called kick the can down the road, hoping that he can keep getting extension after extension. The Lompoc Record got it right when it said that it has grown from a flea market for local residents to a large outdoor commercial market with out-of-town vendors selling new goods. What is the vision for Lompoc in the future? I got here in 1976, and I remember it's about the Valley of the Flowers, and it had a lot of beautiful flower fields. Well, they're pretty much gone now. And then in the 80s, it was a space shuttle, the gateway to the stars, which met with great tragedy. Then there's the Old Town Project, with its multiple murals and upscaling of the old downtown area. Lompoc also has been famous for the last few years for the dog shows. These are but a few examples of what I want Lompoc to be known for. I don't believe the Lompoc residents want to be famous for come to Old Down Lompoc and see the largest, unkept, out-of-control flea market. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council people. I'm not quite of a politician type
Can you
guy,
please state your name?
My name is Moises Solis. But I'm here as well.
You can pull that mic up, Jose. You're a little
Moses.
taller.
Moses. And, Mr. Mayor, you know why everyone's here. You believe in entrepreneurship, people supporting their families, doing the right thing. I see that a lot of people are, homeowners and stuff. It seems like their urination contest is with the concessionaire. So, but these people, they're all innocent. They're all just trying to support their family. And, we're really looking up to you to find a solution for that. You know, if we need to move it, let's move it, but keep it within the city limits. There's contractors now, government taking over school district contracting. I mean, if you have to do something like that for our people to keep them happy, let it be Lompoc City swap meet. And, you know, keep the funds generating where they should be to maybe help hire extra help in the parks, cut the grass, or whatever the needs may be. But I know that you're a good person as well. You put food on my plate when I needed it. You've employed me. But like I said, you know, I'm here for the people. You know, and it is a tradition. And, you know, there's kids out there that are 5, 6 years old helping their parents. And you don't hardly see that anymore with the way everything is, you know, kids having no respect anymore for their adults, anything like that. And, you know, we just, you know, we're going to leave it in your hands and see what you can do for us as mayor.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mariah Garcia. Let's see. I've heard everybody speak. I've took everybody's thoughts and opinions in consideration. I have a few. I'm very angry. Let's see. They are talking about parking issues. I just want to say, what parking issues? I come there very early, very late in the day. I don't have no parking issues at all. I mean, some of the people, local businesses complain about that. I feel like we can come to a compromise with that. I feel like we're all thankful for you considering a new location, but I feel like it's not enough. You're saying the Hancock, I mean, like I said, and everybody else, that's a little bit out of town for a lot of people, especially for walking and things like that. And I just don't see why we cannot come to some compromise and keep it where it's at, the location is. I've spoke with other people as well as myself who also will volunteer to come help clean it up before and after, do whatever it takes. And if you're saying it's the concessionaire, why don't we come to some compromise to help that person? We're giving a lot of questions, but very little answers. And it's always the same thing, and it's kind of like we're going in a circle. And I've sat with my husband, and we've talked about many things. And if you can even just consider keeping it till the end of the year, maybe we can find a bigger location or something. Because it's true, the swap meet is growing because we have more and more families coming out all the time. And we have over a dozen lots that are vacant, big lots. I mean, I got like 2 or 3 by my house, and I live around this area. Why not consider one of those vacant lots? They'll have enough parking as well as have enough room for vendors to set up. And although I gratefully appreciate the consideration of the Hancock College, I just don't think it's enough. I just don't think that it's going to be an appropriate location for us. But I thank you for your time, and hopefully we can come to some compromise because it's going to be ending soon, and I think that we need to come to some agreement before it's over. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance. Going once, going twice. Oral communication is closed. Coming back to the council for discussion. Councilmember Costa, I cut you off because I was concerned, so now let me give it back to you. Sorry about that.
Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
You didn't go the 5 minutes.
Oh, you got a few of you waiting for that? Okay, 5 minutes. Who wants that?
Mr. Mayor?
No, I never did, but it's all right.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of order, if you could reopen public comment.
Oh, sorry, I hereby reopen public comment for 5 minutes.
Well, good evening, Mayor Frank Campo, resident of Lompoc, City Council staff, audience. Having spent 20 years in law enforcement, I love learning about the law, so I look up old arcane laws that are on the books, like you can't drive a tractor in St. Paul, Minnesota when it's snowing in your underwear or something. So, you know, we still have those on the books. So I took the opportunity to look up some of the codes or ordinances the city has. So I went to the Business License and Regulations section, 5.8.20, definitions, and it lists a bunch of definitions. One of the definitions is itinerant vendor. It means any person who has no regularly established place of business in the city and who goes from place to place or from door to door or sets up a temporary stand or a place for the purpose of selling any goods, wares, or merchandise, or one who solicits orders for the sale of goods, wares, merchandise, or services to be delivered at some future time or date. Then it talks about regularly established place of business. It means a fixed place, location, or building owned by the person who uses such place, location, or building as his or her permanent place of business, or rented or leased by the user on a yearly or monthly basis as his or her place of business. No bedroom of a hotel, inn, rooming house, loading house, or boarding house shall, for the purpose of this chapter, be considered a regularly established place of business. So then I skip down to 5.8.30, permit required. It shall be unlawful for any person to engage in or operate any business or activity which is designated in this chapter as requiring a permit without first duly obtaining a permit in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. The next section I went to was 5.8.40, permit required by chief of police. They'll list a bunch of activities: sound trucks, searchlights, detective agencies, burglar alarm systems. But Section E talks about solicitors, direct selling representatives, and itinerant vendors. Soliciting or direct selling in a person by telephone or by any other means of communication the retail sale of any goods, wares, merchandise, literature, services, or other things of value for immediate or future delivery, and where the solicitor or seller does not have a regularly established place of business within the city, a permit shall be required. In accordance with this section, regardless of the zone as defined by the city zoning ordinance in which the sales activity takes place. Now 5.8.150 talks about itinerant vendor bonds. Notwithstanding any other provisions of this chapter, any permit issued for an itinerant vendor shall include the requirement that prior to the issuance of the permit, the vendor shall file in the office of the city clerk a surety bond in the amount of not less than $2,000 or an amount equal to the estimated gross receipts for the period or sales to be conducted in the city, whichever amount is deemed most appropriate by the issuing officer. So it sounds like in addition to having a business license, there's some other licenses or permits that vendors or sellers are required to have at the swap meet. So I'm in favor. I believe the swap meet does add value to the city, but I feel that the current person that's doing the swap meet maybe has failed in his obligation. I queried a lot of the business owners that are close by, asked them, did the swap meet add value? Did it detract? And one owner told me that on Saturdays he experiences a lot of shoplifting on Saturdays only. I talked to some other vendors in the area who got their start at the swap meet. And they said the swap meet was a fine thing. It allowed me to move into a fixed building. However, this business owner did tell me that he didn't pay business license or sales tax for several years. And I know the current operator says he ensures all vendors have business license and pay their taxes. So I think the current operator has failed in his responsibility to ensure the current swap meet abide by the terms of the expired lease. Another thing that's been brought up is there's the dirt lot south of the Chamber of Commerce. I believe that's not part of the negotiated process, but still there's people selling there. So I have a solution. My solution is the city assume responsibility for the swap meet. Perhaps move it to the north side of the parking lot smaller, so we can limit what kind of activity is sold there. Possibly move the time. I think it starts at 9 o'clock with setup starting at 7. Move it to 11 to 4. That way it's a little bit later in the day. I know a lot of cities have that from 11 to 4. Limit what is sold. If you want fresh produce, we have a produce you can buy on Fridays. You can go up to the village and buy produce. And yeah, it's too far to drive up to the college, but maybe offer bus service up there. So I know most of these folks go to Walmart and shop at Walmart. So what's another half mile? Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
My name is Armando Jimenez, and first of all, I thought this was America, where we can't be telling people when and where to sell, what to sell. I mean, cut it out. First of all, I'd like to bring up, want to keep the swap meet here. The initial voting has been, in respect to Mr. Starbuck and the rest of the council, if I was trying this in a court of law, I would seriously ask for a mistrial, being that the position has been compromised with the rest of the council, in respect to the rest of the council voting. The swap meet, it's all about the people. That's why we're here. I mean, we keep spinning our wheels about where to have it, why not to have it. You got the pros, you got the cons. I'd like to see the list of the quantity of the people that sign the petitions. And I know there's only a handful of people that oppose it. But like I said, if the council is doing all the voting, it's been compromised. Your buddy owns property on there, and he can reclude himself all he wants. If they was trying this in the court of law, I would ask for a mistrial. Amen.
Thank you.
Members of the council, City Attorney Ward, Maryland. My name is Tarko Marfalfal. I'm 27 years old, born and raised in this fine town of Lompoc, California. People bring up constitutional rights and things like that about this swap meet, and what's getting me is that my father and people who live in the neighborhood are getting their rights infringed upon. They can't even have peace and quiet in their own homes on Saturdays. They stress out Friday, they stress out Saturday morning, they have cars double parked in front of their homes. I work graveyard shifts sometimes. I can't sleep at all due to the loud music, the banging pipes, the foot traffic. I had a kite flying in my window last week from the swap meet. It's just always going to be something, not to mention the trash and the unruly people. I don't know if it's been documented yet, but it's been documented at the police department that people from the swap meet, vendors, supporters, some who might be here tonight, have threatened my father, which is totally unacceptable. We don't have any issue with the vendors, the patrons, or even the proprietor of the swap meet at this current juncture in time. Our issue is that we want peace and quiet and want to be able to live out our lives without having any issues. I understand people say that it's in the center of town. It's not the center of town. It's on the south side of town. It's in a very poor location where it's surrounded by homes. You go all the way west from that location, it's all homes. If you want to put it in the center of town towards Vaughan, something like that, that's a great idea. I totally support it. I would be glad. I'd stand in the corner with a sign saying, come to the swap meet for 2 weeks. You heard it here first, if I'm allowed to do that with my job. I promise. I feel like there's been ample time given to move to another venue. 75 days is a long time. And as it stands right now, it seems like the only progress that's been made has been by Mayor Lynn, which I respect that, and I feel that's a great thing for you to do for the people who sell there and have their livelihoods there. But at the same time, it's almost like one of our past presidents so eloquently messed up. If you fool me once, shame on you. Shame, what is it? Dang, I messed it up now. How about that? It's, what is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's what it's starting to turn into now. He's asked for some time. You guys said no more. He asked for some time. He said, yes, sure, no problem. Now they're going to want more time, and then more time and more time. I feel like the time has run up. If no progress has been made, I feel like we should be able to go about our lives and be normal human beings. That's pretty much it. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear us out tonight. I'm sorry that we're keeping you guys here late, and I know I wanted to go grab some Taco Tuesday today, but that's probably not happening. But anyways, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate all the effort. I know it's stressful for everyone here, and good luck on your decision.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good evening. My name is Pedro Hernandez. And I just want to tell you, councils and Mr. John Lin, when you got elected to serve the community. And tonight, you are listening to the community. And as one gentleman said, you know, you listen to the community, you hear their opinions, but when it comes to vote, you're not taking in considerations the opinions of the community. And I'm here to support the swap meet. And I know wherever we go, or wherever the swap meet goes, it's always going to upset a few people or some people, and it's going to benefit a lot of people. And right now, see all the community here. And this is the voice of the community. And what are you going to do tonight? Are you going to listen to the community, or are you just going to give your own opinion? your decision when you vote, when you make a decision tonight. Because as I said, you get elected to serve the community and to listen to the community. And I hope you listen to us tonight. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Shane Hamilton. I've been a Lompoc resident my entire life, and I currently live on the south side of Lompoc on I Street in that area. And I've heard a few different things about noise complaints being on the south side on I for the past 3 years. Anyone that lives there knows that there's an enormous amount of commercial traffic 24/7 that goes up to Emerson, formerly known as Sea Light. Those trucks are loud. Their air brakes squeak louder than the swap meet squawks. It's incredible. It's noisy, but no one really bothers to say anything about it because it's something that's necessary for the town. Sea Light's a major staple employer in this area. And as far as the swap meet goes, it's a major staple for a lot of people in this room that work there, make money there, get their kids involved. That's the future of Lompoc, is the kids. They're learning about business at a really young age, and that's really important. Some of the other things I've heard is that area gets really dirty over the weekend. Living in the area, I know it gets extremely dirty throughout the week because there are tons of cars that park there on the daily to take the bus to Santa Barbara. The other thing would be the shoplifting that happens over the weekend there. Those businesses make most of their monies on Saturdays, regardless of the swap meet. That is when most people have their day off to go shopping. In any town working in Lompoc at Big Brand Tire, that's one of their busiest and most profitable days, is on a Saturday. That's when people have the day off to go shop. You're going to have more shoplifting on those busier days. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Omar Falfal. I'm a Lompoc resident and live in J Street. Maryland City Council. On April 1st, the City Council met regarding the flea market. After having gone to the flea market to see what the issue is himself, Mr. Patrick Y. Miller, which is the city administrator himself, to see what the issue are, and an update, and issued his finding. Both sides spoke, and Mr. Lynn asked the council to think about the issue and to vote on further date. July 13th, the concessionaire started a new flea market in Mission Hill. A week later, it closed. The reason, according to the city of Santa Barbara: 1, did not obtain a permit. 2, did not have bathrooms. 3, the neighbors complained. He never went back and spoke again. If he have some right, he would talk. July 15th, the city council met and voted 3-1 to end the swap meet October 1st of this year. The 29th, on the front page of the newspaper, the concessionaire stated, "I won't go without a fight," and also stated that he will keep the council member until 6 a.m. September 4th, the concessionaire came back to the city council with supporter asking for an extension for 3 months, saying that he was having preliminary discussion with the school official to move the weekly market to Lompoc High School. In today's paper, the concessionaire stated regarding the alternative location, including the property owned by the Lompoc Unified District School, have gone nowhere. Further, he said he feel like the swap meet belong where it is now. That's his swap meet, and he's not going nowhere. Mr. Lynn and 3 of the council members are very familiar with the flea market and have been there multiple times. The decision was made to relocate the flea market, not to close it, because it had grown from a flea market for local residents to a large outdoor commercial market with out-of-town vendors, mostly from out of town. And you can take a survey and you'll find out. Selling new goods, and in fact, that concessionaire did not follow the rules set by the council earlier this year. In closing, the concessionaire and his supporter has stopped, if they have stopped arguing the case and put their energy into looking for a new place when they were notified of the relocation, this matter would have been resolved. We wouldn't discuss this now. We couldn't have saved a lot of time and money for the taxpayer. We truly believe the concessionaire and vendors have no intention of going to another location, but merely trying to draw a proceeding to see the new council will reverse the council decision, and we hope the city council will stick to its decision October 1st. We are proud of the city council members and the mayor for standing behind their vote. Some misconceptions. People said relocate. I remember Mr. Weimiller stated to you, Marilyn, the city of Lompoc have no business of relocating people. It's not the business to relocate, even though you have a good intention, and I believe it. But stay neutral, and that way everybody will be okay. But to look for them place, the man can find a place, and he found a place in Mission Hill before. He's experienced man. He stated he's 20 years. The issue here is not about the noise or about the trash or about the neighbors. The issue here about the law and the rules. Until last week they were broken. And they will continue broken. And everybody put their hands back and watch and stand. I hope you take the right decision tonight and say no for the extension and yes for the relocations. Thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you.
It's kind of like deja vu all over again. My name is Richard Toll, and I'm a resident of the beautiful city of Lompoc. This is the fourth time I've been up here on the same subject now. And it seems to all have started because one person who, according to an article in the Lompoc Record, rents his residence across the street from Lompoc. Before he rented this house, he was a vendor and a buyer at the swap meet, who should have been aware of the noise and that the swap meet was there. But after he rented his house, he was suddenly so surprised by the fact that this was there that he felt the need to make weekly complaints. Complaints to the city, complaints to the health department, complaints that have to be investigated. Till finally he got the attention and support of a city councilman. Apparently, we had another Lompoc Record article. The city councilman was accused of the swap meet of being out of control. It should be shut down or closed from its current location. That seems just kind of odd that one person, by complaining, can affect so many. The last time I was here, I got some grief from my local vendors at the swap meet because I did criticize the concessionaire. If that is a problem, don't punish us, close us down. The simple vendors, we pay him the lot rent for our spot. My understanding when I moved in there that also considered was part of the business license and a permit to operate. I might have been misled. That can be addressed. None of the problems we have here cannot be worked out. If a new concessionaire is required, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to apply or submit their names to have that job. We need to have it here. If you put it up at Allen Hancock College, simply someone's going to die or someone's, with the left turn they have to make into the area up there on that road, people coming 60, 65, 70. Someone eventually is going to die going there. Nobody from here can walk up there or even sometimes care to drive up there. We get people that go out to the garage sale all the time, going through, wanting swap meets part of their road. They aren't going to go all the way up to Allen Hancock. Right now, it's almost not even worthwhile to go. If we need to change the concessionaire, negotiate a contract, work out the regulations, let's do it. But don't move it so we're out in the boonies or someplace else. If getting a new location was so simple, it would have been done by now. I've looked through all this town. I can't see of any place that would meet the requirements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next?
Hello. My name is Rigoberto Tovar. Everything's been said, so pretty much we're business owners that profit from the swap meet. We pay all our fees, all our permits, the city utilities, everything that needs to get paid for by a business. So it's not like a swap meet vendor. We're a business, and we profit a lot. The community is right here, and the city should be for the community. I think most of us are in favor because it helps a lot of people. With the economy, I mean, even you guys can't afford some things. So imagine people that make a lot less money. We want the swap meet to stay where it's at. And that's pretty much it. Rules and regulations, definitely not against that. We need them. I'd say we need them. And that's something that requires more of your attention to go out there and see what needs to, for it to be better. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maryland City Council members, community of Lompoc. My name is Darrell Tullis, and I've been up here about this before. And I tell you, you guys got a hard job. You got a hard job, but that's why you were elected, because people trusted you with this hard job. This is not an easy thing. You know, you got people on both sides of this issue with passion pleas going on here. And some of the things that I'm listening to, you know, I've got a very good ear and I've got a very good eye for things. And there's a lot of bait and switch going on here. The bait and switch, when we start talking about the concessionaire, that's taking us off of the subject here. The subject is not about the concessionaire, because you can change that. You can get a new concessionaire. So what you're doing when you talk about the concessionaire is you're taking the eyes off of the vendors. The other bait and switch is the location, change of location. You talked about the high school. First time I talked about this, I told you I knew the high school would not work. And anybody who really thought about this knew the high school wouldn't work. You have basketball tournaments, you have swim meets, you have track meets, you have things going on using that track meet all throughout the year, that parking lot all throughout the year. So you knew that that was not going to work. Another bait and switch. I will give you this though. Have you considered El Camino Junior High School? That area isn't used every weekend. However, there are some soccer that goes on back on the grass, but there's plenty of room to where you could actually still have the soccer going on the side, and you'd have room to put the vendors in over there also. And it's also in the community where it could be walked to. So the bottom line is here, you have got to look at this issue and find a way to fix it, not shut it down. I understand the pleas on both sides of this issue. I had a gentleman standing outside ask me, well, what are you doing here? And I could tell by the way he asked it because I don't look like either side of this issue. Plain and simple. But this is my community. This is my home. So everybody who looks different from me in here, you're all part of my family, part of my community. And this really touches my heart on both sides of this issue. Okay, I really take this personal on both sides because I know people personally affected by this on both sides. So my way of looking at this isn't shut it down, it's fix it. Do the hard work. Don't look to the concessionaire who you've already said has messed this up for years and try to get him to find a new location. Why would you trust the man who you're all saying has messed this up to find a new location? The city owns that property. The city allowed the concessionaire to be there. The city needs to fix this issue. Anyway, stop all this other stuff that's taking people, and you're actually putting people against each other. And it doesn't have to be that way. Everybody involved in this, there's a ways to fix this. The parking, if that was really an issue, you fine people for parking in Sissy's parking lot. You fine people for parking and blocking the residents' homes. If it's a noise issue, you fine people for opening up too early. That's how you fix things. You don't just shut it down because it's inconvenient. You fix it. I only needed 4 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks, Darrell. Anyone else? Last chance. Going once, going twice. Oral communication is closed. Coming back to council, and it's still back to you, Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. I just wanted to be clear in what my questions were, hoping that they would be addressed by the public comment. They have somewhat, there's obviously some differing opinions and differing goals and differing hopes for our decision this evening. And again, I have to clarify, the decision this evening is only regarding whether to allow a time extension or not. That's really the extent of this conversation this evening. So Mayor, what I do want to just talk theoretically briefly before I get into time frame, but I think Mr. Tolos really brought up a good point, which is this discussion about location or about management? And if we really felt like this is a poor location, that's just what I wanted to hear, because it seems like there's an overlap. It's because of what it is that the location is bad. If we think the location is still a potential, then I would just offer up that we need to discuss what we use that property for. What was the initial intention for the use? Do we need to put out an RFP to have something similar but ran differently? I think that theoretically needs to happen. So I would just like to know your answer of what your thought is behind it. Is it the location or is it the management of the current operations that are your concern? But getting into the time frame, I'm just wondering, it sounds like 30 days is on the table for the extended time frame, and I'm just wanting to get some feedback if there would be any, and there is no favor from Mr. Lingle, it sounds like, but maybe his mind has changed, potentially going into the end of the calendar year. So those are just I just want to hear from the council what they're thinking.
Okay, so let me just clarify a couple things, because I think there's some misunderstandings. So first, with regard to the discussion with the school district, I gave a name to the swap meet operator, and he called them within a week of our last discussion when we gave him a period of time to find a new location. He was not able to speak with them for almost 4 weeks because of the opening of school. He did speak with the school district, and then they went into a period of review to determine if there were more positives than negatives in terms of their location. I think their discussion related to all locations within the school district, but I wouldn't be positive enough about that without asking Sheldon Smith, who I spoke to. We never actually asked that question, to Mr. Tullis's discussion of El Camino School. And that was something that the swap meet operator and I had spoken about, was Lompoc High School and El Camino School. So I would think it was probably discounted at the beginning. And I checked back with the school district a number of times to see if they'd reached a decision, and they did in fact not reach that decision until yesterday. So I think the swap meet operator made a timely effort to contact them, went and spoke to them, and then they went to their due diligence period, and at the end of it came to the conclusion that it didn't work. Based on a discussion, and I don't remember who brought it up, but it was somebody in the audience a time or two ago, that College of the Desert, who I happen to be familiar with because I used to live near there, had a successful swap meet and had had it for many years. And Hancock has very extensive parking lots, which are seldom, if ever, used on Saturday. So after learning this morning that the school district was not interested, I gave a call to Dr. Walters, who's president of Hancock College, on my own without the swap meet operator, just looking for a solution, and asked him, hey, would you be interested in looking at this? And he said, yes, I have some experience, and he rattled off 3 or 4 other colleges that were near ones that he was in charge of up in Northern California or Central California, and said they would definitely want to consider it. And I said, okay, how much time would you need to make an analysis of that? And he said, oh, we could get that done in 30 days, no problem. And I said, okay, well, let me go down and talk to the council and see if they would grant a 30-day extension so that you can evaluate it. And here we are. That cover it for you, or did I miss something?
Well, I just want to clarify that the concern for you then is the downtown location itself.
It is clear to me that there are a lot of issues with the downtown location. I'm sensitive to the fact that people don't necessarily want to go up to Hancock because downtown is more convenient, but I'm also sensitive to the issues that we have had with the downtown location forever, and it's obviously outgrown that location because it's on the dirt next door and across the alley, and there's not adequate parking. So I think it would be beneficial to have a bigger location. I did ask staff if we had bus service up there on Saturday, but I didn't get an answer back. But it was very late in the day today. I believe we do because we actually have a run that goes up to Mesa or to Vandenberg Village and Mission Hills and goes right by there. So if we don't, we could surely stop.
Okay, I'll just conclude really briefly just by saying I respect that there is concerns out there, and I said that before. But even as you've highlighted them this evening, it doesn't sound like there's anything that can't be fixed, anything that can't be limited, anything that can't be regulated into compliance. You can regulate size, you can regulate the kind of vendors, you can regulate hours of operation and all of those things that are enforceable. It would be a higher rent, it would be more city staff time, it would probably be a shift from the west parking lot to the east parking lot. There's things that would have to change. But I guess, and I know we're talking about a time extension this evening, I understand that, but I guess I'm still having a hard time understanding why we don't feel like we can make the location work for the community. So I'm having trouble with that.
I think we could make anything work, but I'm not sure that's our responsibility from the city standpoint. That's the city administrator's standpoint. And if it was made to work and it was half the size that it is now, would we be doing anyone any favors? So I don't know the answer to that. Anyway, if somebody wants to give this extension, then they need to speak up so that we can get a vote on. Anybody want to do it besides me?
The other question was, I'm sorry, if I could hear from Councilmember Homendahl and from you, Mr. Mayor, is you're only in favor of a 30-day, not a through calendar year? Is there any potential of through calendar year?
I'm in
January
favor
1?
of 30 days because that's what the college president asked me for.
Councilmember Homendahl, do you have any thought on that?
Yeah, I'll get my 2 bits in. One is that I don't think the management's any good. And I think Mr. Tullis brought that right up to it, is that it's not only management, it's location. The manager can't manage the location. The location's bigger than what the manager can do. So I think if we're going to talk about continuation, we got to better find a new manager because he can't do the job. They're doing a lousy job, or we wouldn't be here tonight. And I think also, I'm going to say that there was some things dropped by the city when you had a 4-year or 3-year lease that was out. And that's as much of a problem as the city of Lompoc as it is to the manager. But we give him a while back to go out and find something, train thing. But all he wanted to do is tell everybody, well, go down to the council meeting and say, no, we want to stay where we're at. He didn't say what he was going to do to change. I think the program works well, and the people who do like it should do it. But right now, I just don't trust the manager. And I think if we want to, if somebody in this audience wants to come in and take over the management of that and kick him out and set up a deal, then it could be done. But I don't see anybody else raising their hands that I'm managing to take over the project. And I'll wait on a while.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I stated earlier, I'm not in favor of an extension, and I did listen to the people tonight. They are not interested in an extension either. I believe they're interested in us just keeping it here. So giving an extension to move it someplace is not what these people want. These people want it to stay where it is right now. So what are we accomplishing by giving an extension? If we give an extension and they find a location, let's say at Allen Hancock, that is not acceptable to these people. And the other people that use it. So I'm still in the stance that I'm not in favor of an extension. It's not going to accomplish anything.
Okay, so here's where we find ourselves. If we don't take an action this evening, Saturday is the last swap meet. So Dr. Walters has asked for 30 days to look at it. I am in favor of giving it to him. I will therefore move that we grant a 30-day extension to the swap meet so that they can continue to operate while Allen Hancock investigates it, and also I can touch bases back again with the Lompoc Unified School District with regard to the El Camino School campus. And I'd be looking for a second.
Understanding that this is the only option on the table, and that there's no other potential amongst council, I'll second that motion.
Okay.
I'll go ahead along with it now, but I think that in the process, you better find a new manager. We're not where it's at, and there's a management problem all the way through, and I think that's what you've got to do. Everybody has a good idea. Glad to have you in town. Glad to have you doing business. But the law toward that. I've been going by that place ever since they opened because I had a ranch in Magdalena Canyon, so I'm down. And it is a mess at times, and it started out very much as a very simple flea market or whatever, but it's gone too far. It does not belong there. Now we need to find a place and see how we put it together.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, could we vote, please? And that passes 3-1. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break so everybody who's here can get out the door, and we'll get set up for the next item. And now, Chief with the update. Yeah, he's gonna give us a.
How many people we sent up there?
I think half the department's up there. No.
If you recall, a week ago Saturday, our new brush engine with 4 members of our department was dispatched to Orange County to the Silverado incident. On the following Tuesday, they were released from the Silverado incident and sent originally to Weed, and then they got diverted to the King Fire burning in El Dorado County. The King Fire is now at 89,574 acres, 35% contained as of 6 o'clock tonight. There's 7,388 firefighters on the line on that fire. It is so large. It's not quite as large yet as the Rim Fire from last year that we were also at. But it's broken into 2 zones, familiar with the El Dorado County. It's now lapped into 2 counties. It's in El Dorado County and Placer County. They're working, the entire management team is working to cut the head off because it's on the verge of threatening the Tahoe Basin. Red flag conditions are in place right now and predicted to go through tomorrow. I looked at the weather for tomorrow night, and they're predicting a chance of showers, which will be excellent. It'll bring the humidity up, and they'll be able to get even more work done. Our crews are part of a strike team from this county. made up of Carpinteria, Montecito, Santa Barbara City, ourselves, and Vandenberg Air Force Base. On Saturday, they will time out. If they're not released, we will send a relief crew up on Saturday. They're working 24-hour shifts, meaning they're on the line for 24 hours. They're out there mopping up, they're cutting line. In the early hours of the fire, they were defending structures. If you saw the picture that I placed in your report this week, on Friday, you'll see not only were they protecting structures, but they were taking care of God's creatures. So we're very proud of the crews that are there. I text with them every single day. When they are in base, they're down and they're getting good rest. Fire camp always feeds well, and they're being well taken care of.
Chief, how do you do a crew swap?
Well, first of all, we have to get approval from the incident because we don't like to do things for free. Once the incident approves it, whoever's the lead on setting, on whoever takes the lead, will then arrange for transportation. They'll coordinate with all the departments. And on Saturday, vans will transport enough crews to change out every engine crew. So you got roughly 22 people that'll caravan up in vans. It just so happens the day we've picked for the crew swap, if they don't release the crews, is Saturday. That's a 24-hour off day, so it's a perfect time to do a crew swap. So a fresh crew will show up on Saturday afternoon. The crews that have been out for 2 weeks will get in the vans and come home, and the fresh crews will go out on the line Sunday morning.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you for the update. And now, without further ado, item number 1, consideration of the Planning Commission recommendation regarding an addendum to the FEIR for the 2030 General Plan update. Lucille. Et al.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This evening, this is a consideration of the Planning Commission recommendations regarding an addendum to the FEIR for the 2030 General Plan update. Phase 2 of the General Plan policy language for the conservation and open space, parks and recreation, urban design, noise, safety, public services elements, and minor additions to the land use element. And with that introduction, I'd like to introduce Mr. Richard Dalton, and he will prepare or present to you our PowerPoint for this evening's presentation.
Thank you, Lucille. Good evening, Mayor Lynn, members of the City Council. Again, Richard Dalton with Rincon Consultants, consultant to the City for the General Plan update. I just want to provide a brief PowerPoint presentation that describes where we are now in the process. Very pleased to be returning with the Phase 2 elements recommended for your adoption this evening by both staff and by the Planning Commission. Just want to go back very briefly and explain the different phasing of the project. I think it may be old hat for some of us, but I think it's kind of confusing for people coming in late to the process. Originally, when we undertook the general plan update, we split it into 2 different phases. The first phase covering the land use, circulation, and housing element updates. That was done because the city was under an obligation from the state to update the housing element according to a certain time frame. And the changes to the housing element necessitated changes to the land use and circulation element as well. So that was taken as a first phase, and that first phase was adopted, those 3 elements, and the EIR certified. That part of the process completed late last year. Then in March of this year, the council directed us to return to the Planning Commission with the Phase 2 elements, and we're now before you with these 3 requested actions to receive and consider the Planning Commission recommendation, hold the public hearing, and adopt the resolution certifying the addendum for the EIR, and directing staff to file a notice of determination for it to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopting the general plan Phase 2 elements and minor additions to the land use element. So we did return even though the land use element had been adopted as part of Phase 1, we did return to that element and take some additional minor changes to it as a group with these Phase 2 elements to cover them all in a single environmental document. So just as a reminder, Phase 2 of the general plan update consists of the elements you see here. In March, Council directed us to add an economic development element that is still in process. So staff is working currently with the Economic Development Committee on that element. A lot of progress has been made, but we continue to refine the language within that element, and it will return to you at a later date. Also, in the intervening years, we've now come upon yet another required state housing element update process, and that is occurring on a parallel time frame with the Phase 2 elements. In fact, tomorrow night we'll be at Planning Commission presenting the draft of that element, hoping for their endorsement so that we can submit it for, to at least begin the state certification process through the Department of Housing and Community Development. Just a quick note that the Phase 2 elements do reflect broad stakeholder input. Staff and the consultant team took a first stab at simplifying the elements, giving them a consistent look between the Phase 2 elements and also consistent with the Phase 1 elements, eliminating some redundant language and policies that had already been adopted from the last phase being removed, and so on. And then those elements were provided to city departmental staff for additional input and to a number of commissions and committees for their input on respective elements of the general plan as well, as you see listed there. We then had a series of planning commission workshops where we went element by element to take comment on the specific policy language that had been drafted, and reflected that in revised drafts that were then presented to the Planning Commission and considered in a series of 3 hearings in July and August. So that's culminated with the drafts that you see before you that are recommended by the Planning Commission. I just want to take a moment to go through each element just briefly, and we can discuss the details as you would like, but just to outline the content of what's in them and what's changed. The first being the conservation and open space element update. That combines 2 of the 7 state required elements. So the Phase 2 elements consist of some that are required by the state, they're mandatory, and others that are optional. Both conservation and open space are required, and they're combined here in a single element. It's previously called the resource management element. For consistency with other cities and ease of use, really, we've renamed that to conservation and open space. It's a broad-ranging element that addresses conservation of biotic resources, cultural resources, soil and mineral resources, water resources, air quality, energy, and open space. It incorporated comments from the utilities department staff, especially in regard to water resources policies. It incorporates mitigation measures from that Phase 1 final EIR. The mitigation said, when you go about updating the conservation element, make sure you include certain policies. Those have been reflected now in this update. And as I mentioned, I think for each of the elements, we've removed implementation measures that have been completed and any policies that simply restate existing state requirements and that don't really add anything to the discussion. We also added goals and policies to address soil erosion and greenhouse gas emissions, which really was not an issue for the 1997 general plan update. Now is a major issue for conservation elements. Parks and Recreation element update is one of the optional elements. It's intended to ensure that the parks and recreational needs of the city are met by providing convenient, attractive, diverse, and well-maintained facilities. It was circulated to Parks and Recreation Division staff and the Parks and Recreation Commission. We did receive input from them. It updates the inventory of existing and planned parks and recreation facilities. In general, in a few places, it does shift the policy focus to maintenance and improvement of the existing parklands and recreation within the city, with an emphasis on achieving sufficient funding for that maintenance. The noise element update, that's one of the state required elements, addresses the present and future noise environments, both mobile, vehicle, and stationary sources of noise, and the impacts of noise on local residents. It was circulated to the Airport Commission for comment. It did incorporate some final EIR mitigation measures related to noise issues with infill development, because the land use element did deal considerably with H Street infill and other infill throughout the city. And so the policy framework and the noise element does speak to that. It clarifies the technical process for determining and mitigating noise impacts from new development. There are some questions raised by staff and some difficulties in implementing the previous policy framework, and consultants costing too much money and having difficulty figuring out the process, so we've clarified that as part of this noise element. We also updated the noise contour mapping based on the circulation element traffic forecast, which is based on the build-out of the land use element. Urban design element is an optional element. It addresses the provision of high-quality community design and development and small-town character. Does that through identification of architectural and streetscape and landscape standards, community landmarks, and neighborhood identity. It was offered for comment to the Beautification Commission. Much of the policy framework from the previous urban design element has been retained, although in a few places there was a shift in policy focus to protection of scenic resources through development review process rather than the zoning ordinance, to allow for a little more flexibility on a project-by-project basis in evaluating scenic resources. The safety element is one of the required elements. It emphasizes hazards reduction and accident prevention from known hazards and potential disasters. Has a fairly broad policy framework dealing with emergency preparedness, flood hazards, fire hazards, geologic hazards, and seismicity. We added a discussion on radon gas and hazardous materials. It was circulated for comment to fire and police department staff, and we received a lot of good input from those departments that has been reflected, and that provides for consistency with their services master plans and other planning documents. As considered by the Public Safety Commission, there are new state mandates regarding subdivisions in high fire hazard areas, and that's been reflected to bring the safety element up to date as well. I think lastly, the public services element is another optional element that deals with some of the same issues we dealt with in safety, but from a service provision standpoint. Also addresses capital improvements, including roads, drainage, sewer and water, treatment plants, and technological infrastructure. Incorporate a lot of comments from the utilities department, and again, a lot of good comments from fire and police department staff, considered by the Public Safety Commission and Utility Commission. And it added a whole policy framework, a goal, policies, and implementation measures for technological infrastructure, groundwater recharge, and stormwater management that weren't previously included. Returning to the land use element, which again was adopted as part of the Phase 1 portion of the update. The Planning Commission considered a City Council request to make two different sets of revisions to the land use element. The first was to change the mixed use land use designation title to urban commercial or other suitable name. The issue that had been raised was that developers trying to get mixed use projects funded were having difficulty based primarily on the title of the use. And the second step being policy modifications to add several references to walkability and bikeability in land use planning framework. The Planning Commission's recommendations on these points, on the first point, the recommendation is that there was no basis for changing the mixed use title at this time, and to defer further discussion until the zoning update in 2015. So the zoning update will carry through the changes that are being made as on a policy basis as part of the general plan update on a more specific basis, and that is an entirely other work effort that will begin next year. The policy language to the land use element to support healthy communities concept was recommended to be added to the land use element by the Planning Commission. Just a brief note about the general plan EIR addendum. It addresses the environmental impacts of the Phase 2 elements and the requested policy language changes to the land use element. But because the Phase 2 elements are generally mitigative in nature, they provide direction to guide implementation of the Phase 1 elements, but in general are intended to avoid, minimize, or mitigate the environmental effects associated with implementation, really with build out of the land uses identified in the land use element and then the circulation system to support those land uses, which do cause physical impacts. The addendum concluded that no new significant impacts beyond those already disclosed in the Phase 1 general plan final EIR would result from the Phase 2 elements. So again, just to return to the requested action tonight, is to consider the Planning Commission recommendations, hold a public hearing, and adopt the resolution certifying the addendum, directing staff to file the NOD, and adopting the Phase 2 elements and minor additions to the land use element. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Who's first? That was pretty easy. Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for the update. I'm very happy to see that the Planning Commission did approve the policy recommendations that I had suggested, so thank you for going through that process. But I did hear that the concern over the name for mixed use was recommended to be deferred until 2015. So if we were to take any action tonight, we're actually, I guess I don't understand what the process is. If we take action tonight, it then has to go back for an additional analysis, or are we allowed to make any addendums to this document? Just, not that I want to, I was just curious.
I think tonight you would be adopting the land use element as revised, or adopting those changes to the land use element. If through the zoning ordinance update process next year, you determine that in order to achieve consistency with the general plan, additional amendments were necessary, then you would take it up at that time.
Thank you. Mayor Lynn, were you aware of that, or I was just...
I'm going to ask the question a different way.
Okay, thanks.
So if we chose to change that name tonight, would it have any adverse impact on our supplemental EIR?
That's a good question. No, it wouldn't. It's covered. It's included in that. It's actually in the EIR addendum, but it is included within that document.
Okay. So I guess my point with regard to that is we have repeatedly had folks from the lending industry, we've had property owners, we've had realty people all come in here and tell us that having that name is the kiss of death for getting financing. And I would really feel remiss if we didn't take the first step in resolving that so that when we get to the zoning ordinance, it definitely does not get forgotten. And I'm pretty sure that I'd have a whole bunch of phone calls tomorrow if we didn't take that step tonight. And then, Lucille, I think you also passed out some changes. You want to address those?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did pass out this evening some pages with specific, more clarifications and updates. And what I've done is to just go in and put those changes in blue, highlight, and bold so that you would notice them differently than the previous changes that were recommended at the Planning Commission level. These changes generally are not substantive. We've reviewed them, and if the council is acceptable, or if they're acceptable to the council, we can make those changes without returning them to the Planning Commission.
And is there anything in these changes that would affect our supplemental EIR?
No, not in my opinion.
Okay. City Attorney, anything in there give you heartburn? That you've been in this process the whole time?
My understanding is that for this to be returned to the Planning Commission, there would have to be substantive changes. The statute does not define what is substantive, but case law has said that it's those changes that, excuse me, that change the intent of the Planning Commission's recommendation, delete entire policies, or that would be inconsistent with other portions of the general plan, or that necessitate a zoning change. Things of those nature are substantive and therefore would be required to return back to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. City Administrator, is there anything in these changes that gives you any heartburn?
No, not right now.
Are you planning on having some later?
I reserve that possibility.
Okay.
Yeah. I just go
ahead.
Just having to catch on page 2, policy 5.2, some revisions on the irrigation. The new bill that was signed by the governor on water control, is that going to have any effect on the general plan? The one he signed last week?
Regarding groundwater management?
Yeah.
Statewide? I think that since the city is its own water purveyor in this case, I don't know that necessarily there'd be a policy ramification in terms of public services, but within the public services element of the conservation element, policy framework of attempting to conserve water, for example, would all still be unaffected.
Okay, I just thought we shouldn't forget that did happen. I know everybody wants to put it out of their mind, but okay.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Mr. Dalton, I just have a couple of questions. As you know, you and I, Lucille, spent much time at workshops and public hearings here. First question I have, and I don't remember why we did this, and I hope you do. It would be on the conservation and open space, our new addition in here, right on the front of the new handout. The city shall support efforts by public and non-profit organizations to acquire properties adjacent to the Mission Vieja de la Purisma site and La Purisma Mission State Historical Park in order to facilitate protection of archaeological resources. Why did we put that in here?
I believe because in the EIR during phase 1, the urban land uses in that area, should they build out, could potentially have an impact on those identified resources. So we had to have a mitigation measure for what.
But we never even took an urban limit line or sphere of influence out there.
I think he's talking about the mission rather as opposed to the.
Oh, okay, so specifically the mission.
Mission rather than the old mission in Lompoc.
If you wouldn't mind, let me consult the policy real quick.
It's not the game changer, but I'm just curious why all of a sudden it showed up in here.
Okay, while they're digging for that one, have you got another one, Dirk? Oh, no, they're both in it. Never mind. Well, I'll take a breath break. Everybody breathe deeply.
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure, no pressure.
What was the page reference?
See open space, it's 18, it's policy 2.10.
Okay.
The open space 10, yeah, page 10, policy 2.10, it's the third one from the top. On her addendum, be the first page on the addendum.
It's
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, I think that's just reflecting a mitigation measure that was a requirement of that final EIR where the ship has sort of sailed, where a mitigation measure was identified to address an identified impact.
I guess maybe we would want to consider the La Purisma mission mitigation because we're not anywhere near there as an addendum later on to change that then. Mission Vieja is the end of F Street. La Purisma is well out of the sphere of influence or urban limit line of anything in any direction we're moving.
Well, it is also listed in the recreational element as an area for the community, so maybe one kind of ties to the other. I mean, is there any downside to having it in there?
I don't think, I mean, it's supporting efforts to acquire properties. So, this could also be reflecting the fact that, build out of the city is going to affect mission era archaeological resources throughout other parts of the city. And so as mitigation to offset the magnitude of that impact for those resources elsewhere by protecting the lands near the mission where it's archaeologically significant and rich, that's an effective measure to
it's
offset.
kind of like there's Mission Hills on one end, a dairy on the other, and fields on the other side, so there's really no mitigation there.
You raise a good point in terms of the no direct impacts on those resources. And we do this with other resources as well, biological resources. Maybe there's not an area on a particular site to plant oak trees to mitigate impacts, so you do it somewhere off-site. And so that may be what's happening here, is that, again, it's finding the place that's the most significant and trying to support efforts to protect those most important resources in the area.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move to urban design real quick. This was one that, now with this part of the...
What's your page number, Dirk?
Well, this would be UD7 or, goal 4, somewhere in that area. But in this element alone, now, once this is approved, will this move our sign ordinance forward?
No.
The sign ordinance is part of the zoning ordinance update.
Okay, so part of zoning will be done, the sign then. Okay. The last thing I had on here, and I just kind of had to laugh at myself, was the noise element on page N9. I think that when we were beating the horse to death on what kind of noises and we were looking at, we forgot under other sources of noise that maybe we should include rocket launches here. It's in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
Makes sense to me.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
On the pages that Lucille gave to us, on page, I guess it's 13? Page 13, goal 9, C/OS, 13. It's about the fourth or fifth page. It's the fourth page. Got that? Policy 9.1, changing participate in to support. Doesn't that really restrict us? I mean, ties our hands? It seems like participate in gives us a little bit more leeway.
I would agree with that statement. I think that's right. Participate in is less committal than support.
Yeah. It's the fourth page that Lucille gave to us.
C/OS 13,
Yeah,
policy 9.
it's policy 9.1. It says, City Hall, it used to be, city shall participate in regional planning efforts, and we're changing it to the city shall support regional planning efforts. And we may not always want to support.
Yeah, I think support can be interpreted many ways, too. I think support could mean endorse, and support could mean provide resources for, provide input into. There's lots of ways to support something.
Unless there's, I mean, I kind of prefer the participate in as opposed to support, unless there's some reason why it was chosen to change to support.
Let me talk about the 2040 RTP, because that's from serving on SBCAG. The regional transportation plan is now much more. It's a document mandated by the state that talks about just a multitude of issues. And we went through a process of selecting the method of implementing a regional transportation plan. And there were, I think, 11 options. And the one the board came down to at the end, and I'm going to just summarize it really briefly, but I can go get it. It's about 200 pages, is that as a policy of SBCAG and the member agencies, we will either create jobs where the people are or create residences where the jobs are, rather than continue to create more and more commuters. And that's why I think support is good here, because it's actually in our best interest to support the regional transportation plan, because it also melds exactly with all the council goals, which is to bring jobs to Lompoc.
But participate in does not prevent us from participating in supporting it. It just seems like it's telling us we must support.
Well, go ahead.
There could be an issue with support here in that, I think you're alluding to this, Mr. Mayor, that the regional transportation plan as of the 2040 update now includes a sustainable community strategy. It has a land use plan. The state's required regional planning agencies to coordinate their circulation and transportation planning with land use planning formally as part of this plan. So they've developed a plan that demonstrates how they can reduce greenhouse gas emissions from passenger vehicles and light-duty trucks in the region through land use. However, they don't have, obviously, any land use authority to compel changes in land use. That rests with this council. So by saying you support the regional transportation plan, in a way you could be insinuating that you support that land use plan, which you in fact have not directly endorsed.
Correct. And if we left participate in, then we could defend our decision either one way or the other.
Okay. It's not that important. Everybody good with participate in? Dirk?
I don't believe that's substantive, but also I don't believe we've come to the public comment period yet either.
Good point. Okay. Anybody else have, I'm sorry, Bob, you have another question?
No.
All right, we'll go to public comment and we'll come back to this. Who would like to talk to us on phase 2 of the general plan? Anybody out there? Don't everybody jump up at once. Going once, going twice. Closed. Come on back. Okay. Now we'll go back and ask that same question again with regard to 9.1 on C/OS13.
Yeah, so I'm just requesting that we retain the words participate in lieu of the word support. So just change it, or leave it as it originally was.
Okay, and I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to ask for consensus on little changes like this, and then we'll vote on the whole document when we get to the end. Is everybody good with that? That's kind of our standard practice. Dwayne, you okay?
Yeah.
Dirk? Okay, Bob?
Yep.
Okay. So with regard to Councilmember Lingle and return this to participate in, Ashley? Dwayne? Yes. Dirk? I'm fine. I'm pretty sure Bob votes yes. Okay. Now we'll go to the next question. I have one regarding a map, but has everybody looked through the supplemental documents? Is there anything else on here that somebody wants to discuss? Or are we all good with the rest of it? Good? Okay. Good? Okay. All right, so let's go back to other items. I'll start from the right, Bob. Is there an item in the main general plan that you'd like to discuss?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, Dirk, do you have an item in the main general plan you'd like to discuss?
Not yet, but I will have some input on the mixed use that's coming up.
Okay. Well, we can take mixed use right now. I mean, I truly believe we should change the mixed use title right now to urban commercial to honor all the people that have come here and told us that it's bad, and no one has come here and said that it's good. So I don't think there's any support for the current mixed use title. Now, Dirk, you want to say something on it?
I'm going to take some of Lucille's thunders here real quick, because sitting on this for several hours discussing mixed use and other, I'm just going to make staff's comment to the Planning Commission at this point was the title of mixed use land designation can be changed as the Council and Planning Commission directs. The term is generally used in planning practice to denote development with two or more different uses, residential, commercial. If the intention is to change the development standards as well, then it is recommended that be done with the upcoming zoning code update. That action would require a general plan amendment to the land use element text and the land use map, a zoning text amendment, and a map update. If the intention is to just change the title mixed use and retain the development standards, both the text in the land use element and the general plan map will need to be updated. It would also be advisable to notify property owners of the proposed change in title so there will be no future misunderstandings of how their property was being designated. There are currently 133 mixed-use designated parcels within the city. Now think about if we want to get into that tonight, or if we want to approve Phase 2 and then work the zoning as a separate issue, please.
Okay, just so you understand, we have no obligation to notify the 133 parcel holders tonight to do a word change. But if nobody wants to do it with me, yeah, it's okay too.
I want to do it, but I don't want to do it tonight. I don't want to take this out of sequence with the approval of the Phase 2.
It's okay with me. I brought it up. I'm good. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Councilmember Costa?
Well, I agree with you that, I mean, there were some real concerns that were expressed, so there is a problem with that title, but my only concern is if there are adverse effects in the current title, there may be some adverse effects for others in changing the title, so I think that actually notifying those folks is a really good practice, so that way we've, crossed our T's and dotted our I's. I think the idea here, though, Mayor Lynn, is not that you actually want to change the idea of what mixed use is, but just change the title.
All I want to do is change the name, because that's what the problem
And
is.
so, I am in support of that. So, tonight and, in the future, I won't be here. So that's, you have my support tonight. So.
Councilmember Holmdahl?
Well, if we're having problems with what it says, I would like to see it changed.
Councilmember Lingle?
I agree with Councilmember Starbuck. We all want to change it, but I think we should wait till the proper time, and that's when the zoning comes up. So my opinion is not to change it tonight.
I have a technical question. If we take the action this evening to adopt general plan update phase 2, is there any time frame between which it is sort of signed, sealed, and completed, or is it this evening upon approval?
The resolution's effective 30 days following your action.
So I guess in the worst case scenario, I don't know if this is the right way to do things, or if it would be too much of a burden. Over that 30-day period, the property owners could be notified, but then essentially there's nothing they can do to contest it. They would have to wait for the amendment. Is that what would have to happen if they were really dissatisfied with the name change?
If the action that the council takes is to change the name, then that would be the decision that we would be advising the property owners that the change had been made.
But if there was a significant amount of concern over that change, there's no place, there's no forum for them to express that discomfort until there's an amendment.
Well,
Attorney?
the staff is correct that the resolution wouldn't take effect until 30 days after, but that would be considered a final action. And then because it's a final action of the city council, the next remedy would be judicial. And if anyone wanted to challenge that, they would do so in court, because it would be a final action of this element. And then they would have a certain amount of time to file a writ of mandate. So I believe that answers your question.
I think so, yeah, I'm right, I think so. I think if they're going to go down that path, they probably wouldn't wait for the next general plan amendment. So that is, I guess, a concern. So then this topic was spoken about it has been though, at council and at one planning commission meeting, is that right?
It was discussed, yes, it was discussed at a planning commission meeting. The meeting of the 27th, I believe, is when they made the recommendation.
Can you recall if there was extensive, I know you highlighted, but was there extensive discussion or public comment? I saw the minutes, there was some comment, it tends to be from the real estate groups.
Well, the discussion was for the commission, if it was an appropriate time to do it. And without having any testimony before them, though Councilmember Starbuck did speak to the issue, they determined that it would be more appropriate to wait until the zoning ordinance update, and that was their recommendation to council.
And when does that take place?
That'll take place following the completion of the general plan. We will then go out for an RFP, and we assume that we're planning on starting that at the beginning of the year.
The RFP process.
We have the funds for it, and so we're going to go right into that as council has agreed that we should do. So it is our next step.
So estimated time frame in 2015. I know you said it earlier, but I just wanted to.
Well, we would start the beginning of 2015 with the workshops and.
The workshop, okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Starbuck?
I guess, Lucy, one of the other things that I would like to be very clear on here is if we decide to change the language, or if it's voted to change this tonight, we're going to have to put an amendment into phase 1 before we even approve phase 2 basically here, aren't we? We're going to have to change our general plan map and our land use element with an amendment with this verbal change.
That's correct. We are this evening changing the land use element text to add the healthy living references, but we would have to change the map as well.
Okay, I give up. We'll see if we fix it next year.
I do have a question on another topic, Marilyn.
Sure.
The only thing I noticed is in the air quality portion is there was no statement to the effect of what was to continue efforts that have been done to mitigate particulates and improve air quality, such as like the approval, and I don't know if maybe scientifically it doesn't, so I'm sorry if that's incorrect, but the approval of like the new fuel station for LUSD, for example, the compressed natural gas station, and also I'm thinking instituting, there's a large argument between instituting alternative forms of transportation or availability of that and improving air quality, such as the bike lanes that we've done or any other things. I didn't see that there was a comment to that effect to just continue those efforts. And so I didn't know if that was, I think that probably would be too substantive at this point, but I just wanted to inquire about that. If that's outside of the scope of what you normally put in air quality.
Yeah, you would. It's a good question, but you would ordinarily see that in maybe a climate action plan if the purpose was for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. You see that at a regional level as part of a clean air plan for criteria pollutants, ozone, precursor smog, basically. So we do have policies that the city shall participate in regional air quality planning programs in a more general sense without getting specific.
Okay.
One of the reasons we do that is that those clean air plans are updated every 3 years. And so you start putting some things in here in a 20-year document and suddenly they're outdated. So we try to stay fairly general and we talk about the specifics of the programs.
Okay, that's totally understandable. I agree with that. And then the last thing I wanted to ask was goal 2 of the urban development piece. I was like maintaining the small character of Old Town. I just didn't know.
What's the page number?
Oh, sorry. It is UD2.
And the item number?
Policy, or goal 2. But you know what? I think what I'm going to have to do is it's like every time you look through this document, it's like something new or something different. And so rather than derail the conversation of approval tonight, I think what I'm going to have to do is keep some of these suggestions for the First Amendment and maybe come back and be part of that discussion at that time. Is there any suggested time frame for that, or because I just want to be sure I'm aware, or is that only done as needed, as described by like council or the planning commission?
Right, it would be on an as-needed basis. I was suggesting earlier that through the zoning ordinance update process, it could come to light that there is a need then to adjust some things in the general plan as well, that might be an opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you.
For instance, we talked a year or so ago about changing some zoning ordinances with regard to what they contained, and we concluded we would do the general plan, and then we would do the zoning ordinances, and we would come back and change the general plan to match the new zoning ordinances. Okay. On page UD7, policy 4.3, I can't really wrap my head around that. .3, the city shall encourage signage to enhance the visual qualities of the urban streetscape, or I'm sorry, to enhance the...
It's changed from encourage to require.
Yeah, but I don't even get it. I don't know how you enhance urban streetscape with signage. If it's city signs, I get that. And the city administrator and I were discussing this earlier, and I don't think we ever came to a conclusion. If it's city signs, I understand a consistent sign program for wayfaring signs and those sort of things. But if it's the signs of businesses, I think we're really tiptoeing along the edge of a federal court decision about what you can and can't mandate with regard to people's signs. Because you know you can't mandate color. And in a sign program, you can mandate size and placement. But size and placement doesn't really determine visual qualities. That's more of the content of the sign, which the federal court said we can't be regulated. The only thing they said you can't do is it can't look like a traffic sign.
When did that happen?
Before you got here, when we had, before I got here. So we had a consultant do a sign ordinance program in 2006-ish, and when that consultant was presenting, one of the things that they pointed out was that our ordinance was in violation of this federal court decision because we allocated a certain number of colors and signs, and they basically said, no, you can't do that. Councilmember Holmdahl was on the council then. Your recollection is similar. Because when we did the corrections to the sign ordinance, back when Dirk and I were on that committee, we corrected that issue back then. So I'm concerned that this one kind of goes in that direction, but I honestly have no idea how to fix it, and I'm open to suggestions. Dirk?
Could this be addressed in the sign ordinance itself? The specifics, the visual qualities, et cetera?
Absolutely, I think it would be. This is just intending to be a general policy statement. It's really saying signage should look good and it should be consistent, right? So
can we say that?
One way it would be to return, if you're sensitive to the constitutional issue, the legal issues, you're returning to encourage signage to be enhance visual qualities of the streetscape. That's no longer a requirement at that point. So I don't think you'd be in violation.
I'd probably be a lot more. That's a good idea. I'd like to return to encourage. I'm on Lingel's team on that again. Bob.
There we go. I'm good.
Okay, everybody's good with encourage? Okay. And I had one other one that was... Oh, actually it was on that same page. Bottom of the page, measure 3, the city shall require new homeowner associations to maintain and preserve natural habitats within their respective developments. Can you tell me what that's trying to say? Same UD7, measure 3 at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I think this
or measure 2, I'm sorry.
I think what this is getting at is where you have a project that identifies a homeowners association, that the responsibility for preserving the visual qualities, the natural visual qualities of...
No, this is habitats, I'm sorry. City shall require new homeowner associations to maintain and preserve natural habitats within their respective developments. Like, you need a place for the bunnies, or I don't know what that means.
Well, it's in the context of the urban design element, so it's talking about the natural scenic qualities of the habitat. So a stand of trees or vegetation, if it's set aside as a condition of the development, that the maintenance of that area is the responsibility of the homeowners association if there is one.
Okay, so can we find a word besides habitats? Because that one just leads me in a completely wrong direction.
Sure, areas, natural areas.
Okay, perfect. I love it. All right. And then I have an issue with, and unfortunately everybody has the black and white map except me, because I printed it in color, with map figure C/OS1, which, yeah, it's the very first set of maps in this thing, so it's clear up at the front, because I successfully printed those and then I got in trouble.
Which one is it, OS1?
It's OS1, so it's the very first map, like,
My map's bigger.
ooh, Dirk's got the big map. I'm concerned about, let me use yours so I can read it. My glasses aren't good enough for that one. Riparian vegetation stream habitat, and it shows I made enough for everybody. It shows the low bench of the airport, which is, this is a picture, a kind of not too good picture, and there's plenty for the audience too, of the low bench of the airport in about 1985, which, as everyone can see from this, is not so riparian habitat-ish. It's really a large industrial park, and if you're looking at it with the word Lompoc on the runway at the top, the area to your right is a rock quarry, but it's not on this map, or not on this picture, because it wasn't a wide enough angle shot. So I would like to see that CXC/OS1 is amended to eliminate the low bench area of the airport from the riparian habitat, because it is surely not. It's an industrial area that regrew some willows, and there's debris and concrete and stuff down there everywhere.
Is that regulated by the city, or is that as it's been designated by some state or federal conservation agencies?
No, this, as the city's planning document, this is the city saying, here's some areas you should be cognizant of when developing. So if the conditions have changed in a way that, alters the habitat quality such that it should no longer be designated, then I think it's fair to clean that up in the mapping.
Can you point to the location on the map, Mayor Lynn, that you are speaking of? So
It's this little area right here, stuff on the north side of the airport. That is this.
So really the map is.
Yeah, if you turn it that way.
That's the airport, see.
How did we come, that was a pre-existing statement that was in the general plan, correct?
Yes.
And so how was that statement formulated? Was there any biological research that was done? I mean, it seems to be a pretty large change. Not that I'm opposed to it, but...
Well, I think we're cleaning up maybe an inaccuracy. It was based on interpretation of aerial photographs. So there weren't site-specific biological resources analyses that map this. As projects go forward near riparian areas, if they're going to impact them, they're required to go through a range of state, federal, and regional permitting. And at that point, that's where you would delineate the jurisdictional boundaries very precisely. At this programmatic level, it's just again, based on aerial photography interpretation.
So what's the intent of that statement then?
So then there's policies that say, there should be a buffer from riparian areas or natural habitat areas, that those are areas that should be protected. So in this case, if there's an area that's now the conditions have changed, so that's not something that the city needs to protect anymore, then I think it's fair to clean that up.
And this picture you said was from the 80s?
1985-ish.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look like that anymore, that's for sure.
No. Well, I mean, the debris and the building slabs and all of those things, there's stuff down there everywhere. There's underground tanks, there's all kinds of stuff.
I guess I'm surprised with all the analysis, CEQA analysis, and all, all the environmental analysis that's done, that anything that specific isn't included, I guess, is what it sounds like.
Well, if George Bedford hadn't had this picture from when he was the fixed base operator at the airport, there probably isn't another picture around, so they didn't have access to this, obviously. It was just something new that...
No, I mean like biological specific data that shows where the riparian habitat is located.
I mean, that would come to light if there were a development proposal in that area, then it would be specifically mapped, as part of that parcel. But in the absence of that, areas can go a long time without being updated in the mapping.
Okay, so we're kind of, I guess even with eliminating it though, regardless of the development, we're still covered because they're going to have to do their own analysis for that site.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it may come to light that in fact this is still habitat, and we could.
That would be a possibility.
Okay, everybody good with making this? Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
You good with making this change?
Yeah. John, one thing you got to remember too, that river changes every time there's a major flood, and it'll wipe the whole thing out. So we've had 2 or 3 of those when it's wiped everything out, and then it'll come back. So it's never constant.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Was this just keeping in mind that the motorsports park is going in a similar location? Was that the intent? That then
Absolutely.
the park would be consistent with the general plan?
I think the general plan is consistent with the facts. The motorsports park still has to go through an entire environmental review.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's all my unanswered questions. Maybe one left. Oh yeah, I got one more. PS 14, Measure 32, and I'd have to go into the office to get the real drawing, but I can just talk to the subject. Yeah, PS 14, Measure 32, it's the one on the bottom of the page. PS 14. It's the very last page in public safety element, or public services element, I'm sorry. PS 14, yes. 32, the last one. And this is an addition, so this would be something new. Earlier this year, I was working with the prison and a solar company and a financing element to bring a large solar project to the prison property. And the discussion focused around, number one, the prison had the land available, which was being used for grazing land, so it was suitable. Number two, there's great financing out there to build it. Number three, the price of solar projects has come down dramatically with the new printed film solar panels rather than the cut wafer panels. Number four, from the prison standpoint, they were excited about having a program where their inmates could build the farm and get certificates for solar construction and solar maintenance. And then the hook for the city was that we would end up with a solar farm at a dramatically reduced cost. Some portion of the electricity on a fair share basis would go to the prison, and we would have anywhere from 2 to 5 megawatts on the backside of the meter, which means we wouldn't pay that currently about 1 cent per kilowatt in transmission expected based on what we heard back when the electric rates were discussed, about 2 cents per kilowatt for transmission going out into the future. So the wording that I kind of crafted was location of a financially viable large solar project within the city limits to avoid future transmission cost increases as one of our objectives, just to put this on the radar and see if we can make something go forward. So we would have the opportunity of having a large solar farm here, but only on a financially viable basis. I don't want to build something that's going to cost us more money. But with a combination of the reduced price in the solar cells, free land, and basically free installation labor, it looked like it was going to go somewhere. Location of a financially viable large solar project within the city limits to avoid future transmission cost increases. And if you get better wording, Mr. NCPA, I'm good with it.
Well, no, I've just, definition of large, what would we, I mean, would that be defined, the number of,
Well, what they looked at was anywhere from 2 to 10 megawatts. I don't think there's enough room for 10. I think there's 2 to 5 there. And that would be, actually would be the prison's decision. That's why I said large. I mean, it's not half a megawatt, that's for sure.
yeah, as long as it's financially feasible, I mean, it certainly makes sense.
Okay, so let's use feasible instead of viable.
Just a suggestion, just to keep it more of a generic nature, why don't we go where it says procurement of adequate sources of electrical power, including future solar projects?
I'm okay, but I want to get the concept of a large one within the city limits. I do. You know, I surprise you guys all the time. So, everybody good with that? And using feasible rather than financially viable.
As long as staff is okay that is, I keep using the word substantive, it's not.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt your EIR.
You know, I don't think so. I mean, we're talking about the measures to review the long-range needs of the electrical system. It's not setting in course, a course of action to proceed with a solar project.
I would agree. It's the addition of one periodic review.
Okay. All right, that's everything I got. Who else has got something?
I was just, it takes me sometimes it takes me a second to digest, and so I was just going to ask, you have the support, and I think that's fine. Can you just take this motion separately, I think, for this evening, based on looking at the current map? What has happened is you've had a lot of repairing of habitat since '86, and so I would be concerned that saying the entire area shouldn't be included on the map. So I think it's fine you have your support. I think you should go forward with that, but I just want to take that one motion separately so I can vote no and then vote yes with everything else.
Sure.
Thank you.
So let me make that motion. I move that
Let somebody explain this again to me.
You asking her to explain it to you?
Whoever understood it.
What do you want me to explain? Why I'm changing? Want to change this map?
Councilmember Costa, what did you just ask to have happen?
No, we made a couple of amendments tonight, very non-majorly impactful to the EIR amendments, and I agree with all of them except for just this one, which was to change the map. Which one was it?
Open space.
OS1.
OS1, the mayor suggested that part of the area near the airport in the San Ynez River be taken out of a zone identified as riparian habitat. Am I even saying that right?
Correct.
And then showed us this where historically there has been some industrial style uses, and you can tell here that there's very limited habitat. But then when you go back, I just went back to the picture, the Google Earth picture, and noticed a lot of the habitat has been, has regrown and kind of re-exists. So I'm not sure I'm comfortable with feeling that I know enough to take it out when it's already been there in the pre-existing document. I don't think it's, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I don't think it's, a
Okay, I just didn't understand the first time.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. So therefore, I move
Mr. Mayor,
that I listen to the city attorney.
I apologize. Before you make your motion, it may be easier to vote on Councilmember Acosta's item first.
That's what I'm going to do.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to stop me? So therefore, I move that the map C/OS1 be amended in the area of the low bench of the airport to not show a riparian habitat. And I'd be looking for a second. Don't everybody jump at once. Okay? Yeah. Yep. It's this right here. Well, Dufresne and Company, Atlas Recycling, and I don't know, everybody and their dog had something down there. Okay, any other questions on this? Okay. Could we vote, please? And that passes 4-1. Thank you. Okay, now in view of the fact that Councilmember Starbuck attended every single meeting, I believe he should be given the honor of making the motion, and anyone else who attended substantial meetings should be given the honor of the second.
I move staff recommendation.
No. You move staff recommendation with amendments.
With amendments.
Yeah. And who else went to a bunch of planning commission meetings? No one. No one? Okay. In that case. Okay, so Starbuck and Lingle. All right, is there any further discussion on this item before we vote? Is the motion clear to the clerk? Is that a yes? Let the record reflect that the clerk nodded affirmatively. Is the staff clear on the motion and all the amendments that we've talked about? Is the city attorney happy?
Yes.
Wow. Therefore, we shall vote. And there you have it, 5-0. Okay, I will now remind the council that we agreed repeatedly that we would review the 17 properties that were downzoned principally from industrial, but in one case from commercial office to residential as soon as we passed the general plan. 3 of those people called me this last week to say, are you going to pass the general plan? Which I had to respond, well, we haven't voted yet, so I can't tell you. So now I would like the council to agree to set a date to review those downzonings. Staff, when would you like to have that? And it would be really nice to have it sooner rather than later. That's you, Lucille. You lucky bird, you.
When would I really like? January?
No. There would be a lynch mob outside City Hall. And it would be better if this council that has gone all the way through all of this and knows everything about it heard this item. So.
I just was reminding everyone that there's 3, I believe, potentially 4, but most likely only 3 meetings left. So.
The second meeting in October would be an outstanding time to deal with this. Okay, therefore the second meeting in November. City Administrator.
Yeah, I was just calling the kibosh on the second meeting in October. That wouldn't be realistic for us to respond.
So how do you feel about the second meeting in November?
Better than I do the second meeting in October.
Lucille, how do you feel about the second meeting in November? Please.
We'll do our best to look at that.
Thank you so very much. Okay, so now for that, I need a second and a third. Who wants to be the second? Who wants to be the third?
A second.
Okay, and who wants to be the third? Don't everybody jump at once.
I'm going to go ahead and third it, but we're talking about 17 specific properties that we've already dealt with previous.
Correct.
So you're aware of which ones we're going to talk about.
And I'm not going to tell you it's 17, I just remember that number, but you know which properties are involved. Okay, oral communications, your last 2 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. City clerk, written communications.
Nothing.
Oral communications, your last 2 minutes to talk to us on any subject.
Mayor and Council, Will Schuyler, live in Lompoc. I kind of apologize to the mayor. As much investigation stuff has been done on this mixed-use thing, I thought surely it was dead. And really assumed sitting there that it would be taken out and the new, whatever it's going to be called, put in. So you talked about 133 properties. I own 3 of those properties, and I'm certainly open to another designation. Originally, this property back in about 1962 was put in all office space, 7 city blocks, because we were supposed to go clear to Leahy Avenue and have within 3 years from that date 200,000 people here. And you know, the only one that ever did the commercial office was the Holloway building. The rest of it was deal. So when I was on the council, mixed use sounded good to me because it seemed like that was what it was. But investigating later found out the mixed-use properties that I looked at were all funded by nonprofits, which gets all the advantages of the loans and all that. And so, but you go as a private person and you can't get nothing on it. So I'm sorry you didn't go ahead and change that tonight, but I hope that the council will, in time, find another designation for those properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Closed. The Lompoc City Council will adjourn to a joint meeting.
Sorry, Mary Lynn, I do have one. Sorry. I don't know if you want a council requests.
I wasn't going to have to. This was a special meeting. We weren't going to have any. Okay. Council requests, meeting announcements, starting with Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. I just wanted to bring up, a request was made either 1 or 2 or 3 council meetings back, and I was in agreement to put an item on the agenda to discuss the Measure P issue, which is a ballot measure in the county. But I've since found that it might be beneficial to actually just leave that out of the city forum and allow the campaigns to continue down that path in their own regard. And so I didn't know if there was still, and I was one of the 3 that approved that. So I didn't know if there was still 3 members of council who wanted to see that on an agenda. I don't think that's necessarily the best strategy moving forward, since I have received information between then and now that has changed my mind.
Whichever one of you got to the button first.
I wasn't on that issue.
I was just very quickly to make a statement here that in the council handbook, last time when City Attorney Pannoni looked at that one, did it affect the city directly? We didn't read far enough down. I think we need to look at C3 in there also.
What does that refer to?
Not having memorized the whole thing, but it did talk about, you know, our involvement outside of the city with specific legal things.
There it is.
I was just concerned because when I in theory, I think that, we all have an agreement, most likely politically, and have a lot of similar feelings on the measure. And I don't want to miscommunicate my feelings, but in discussions that I've had since then, I think that the direction that they're going is, that they don't really need a letter from the city, that they're going to continue with their campaigns without needing that discussion or letter at the city level. So in hearing that, and the suggestion was made to me that, I just say, look, it probably isn't the best idea for us to take that on as a city to discuss that. So that was what I've been told.
Having been handed the council handbook, last time this was brought up, and I brought it up, we read the part where it says legislation at another government level generally will be formally supported or opposed only if the issue directly affects the city of Lompoc, is within council's jurisdiction, and is consistent with council policies. Formal support or opposition may be expressed on any legislation that may affect city finances, enhance public revenue sources, help regain revenues retained by the state of California, and preserve and enhance local control of municipal affairs. The next paragraph, the council will not take any action to provide advice regarding how an elector should vote on any state or local ballot measure unless the League of California Cities has encouraged cities to take action or the matter directly affects the city's funding or operations.
So I guess the question there is, do the 100-ish oil workers that live in Lompoc and earn their pay affect the city? That's kind of the question. But anyway, back to the other question. Who's next?
Well,
There's so many lights.
Well, actually, I think we should probably act on Councilmember Costa's request, because she was one of the three. If we no longer have three that wanted to bring that forward.
And that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, Mr. City Attorney, how do we address that? If we no longer have three that want to bring something forward?
Unfortunately, I wasn't at the prior meeting, so was this...
It was three to place an item on the agenda.
And this was done by...
Which has been placed.
And this was done by motion?
It was done by our informal process.
Yeah, if I can, to help the city attorney, the process is that they do a voice tally, and if they get a first, second, and third, no votes necessary. The first, second, and third are the combined action to place something on the agenda. With that, we've scheduled this matter for October 7th. And so we're at a time where if we're not going to go forward on October 7th, that needs to be proclaimed now. I'd suggest, it seems to me it got placed on with the first, second, or third, and it's not like, I think it, as I understand it, and I'm open to correction, it would take a first, second, and third now to pull it off, as opposed to seeing if we have another third.
Oh, okay, that's...
I don't know, it was scheduled with 3 votes, that's what normally it takes.
That'd be my understanding. Had this been approved via motion, we would obviously have a renewed motion or a reconsidered motion, but because this was done by voice tally of only 3, another tally of 3 to then remove this would seem to undo what has already been done.
Okay. So who would like to undo?
that would be my motion.
Well, actually, just be an undo.
Yeah, my request.
Okay, who else would like to undo?
I'll support Councilmember Costa with this.
And one more. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then it's undone. Now, who has a report that I didn't get? Anybody? Going once? Going twice?
Yes, my light's been on.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, I just need to report that I attended an NCPA meeting on Wednesday, September 17th and 18th up in Northern California. The city did pay my mileage and hotel rooms. And then on yesterday, Monday, I attended the Oversight Board meeting here at City Hall.
Did we pay for your motel room?
No, that's okay.
Darn it. We could have got the TOT. Okay. Anything else? Councilmember Homdahl.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't here at the last meeting. I did go to the Northern California teachers
League of Cities.
League of Cities, and the city paid for my transportation and my hotel room. The other thing, last week I was in um, judging wine in Northern California. He had 1,110 bottles of wine we had to go through. But fortunately, we don't have to do all of them. We got 20 people. And it's a very interesting program. They have their own fairgrounds. And it may be something to be interested. It's all sponsored by Sonoma County Fair. But you know, something maybe the city may want to look at down the road, that we have our own wine tasting. It brings a lot of people into town. The one thing I did bring up with everybody up there, they said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Lompoc." Said, "We're a sideways country," and they all know about that. And so, you know, of course, it's the 10-year anniversary of Sideways. So, but other than that, one other question that has nothing to do with what I just got to talking about earlier on this evening. We said about the swap meet, and 30 days from now. If I'm right, then that'll be on the agenda on the 21st of October.
No, Councilmember Holmdahl, I'm not sure I agree with that assessment. You voted a 30-day extension. The previous extension was October 1st, and now the new deadline is October 31st. I did not hear any indication of any item coming back before you.
That's why I brought it up, to see if we wanted to have it earlier. So,
as I understand it, as we stand right now, unless there's any other indication from council, I contemplate no further action before this body on that topic. You've taken an action to extend the term to October 31st by 30 days. So there's no pending action to bring before this body.
That's why I want to get clear, so we don't have to come back. We have no other action on it, and it's finished on October 31st.
As we stand right now, yes.
Okay.
Last chance. Going once, going twice. Therefore, the Lompoc City Council will adjourn to a joint meeting with the Utilities Commission at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October 7th, but probably at 6 o'clock for a closed session.